Finland have pretty much punched their ticket into the 2016 World Cup of iRacing final, and now it's time to see who will join them. Will it be Club Diach, who are a multi-time winner of this competition? Will it be Iberia? Will it be Florida or Texas that joins and goes for the chance of being called the best club in iRacing? Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Atlanta for the first part of our coverage here on RaceSpot TV, streaming live on iRacing Live. Will Vincent, Jake Sperry, Jonas Purica, we are here. We'll be with you throughout this event as we've got ourselves guys already on track looking to get themselves qualifying times. We'll go and have a look at some of them in just one moment's time. Jake, good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon, Will, and good afternoon to everyone watching at home. This is surely going to be one of the most anticipated groups, then you could say, here in this iRacing World Cup as things stand. You look at the likes of Diach, who are multi-time winners. Florida are 5th seeded, and they certainly could provide an upset. And Texas, well, Texas's chances, you never know. There could always be an upset, Will.
Yeah, we are at Atlanta. This track has got 24 degrees of banking. It's just over 1.5 miles in length. And, well, Jonas Purka joins us. Club Finland pretty much punching their tickets. Not yet confirmed, Jonas, but they're pretty much something catastrophic will have to happen in the last couple of minutes of that event that's taking place now.
Yes, and don't jinx it now, Will. Don't jinx it, but this is what we expected, and this is certainly what can be expected of Finland. Now the real question is, will it be Diach, Florida, Texas, or will it be perhaps Iberia joining us in the finals? I'm thinking it's going to be either Florida or Diach. Now, we want our chance to compete against Diach once again in the finals, but you never know. Florida could surprise us, and hey, as Jake said, they are the 5th seed.
They are Florida, the 5th seed for this event. Club Diach have had themselves some issues in terms of management, in terms of getting a team together. So this one is going to be close, and as so often is the case in the World Cup of iRacing, it's not just about winning the event, it's about having depth in numbers, and those teams that can get themselves as many drivers inside the top 5, inside the top 10, they'll be the ones that will head themselves to the road event later on, arguably with the best chance of success. So you can see all of the clubs are running in their fantastic club liveries for this event. Some fantastic work's been taking place throughout all of the clubs to really get their little team passion going. Qualifying is over, and now that means we can show you the starting grid for this event, and you'll see. Well, we can't show you a grid. We will do any second now, hopefully. But we will get a grid up for you in just one moment's time, hopefully. So there we are. The World Cup of iRacing Group B. We're just waiting then for the drivers to head themselves down onto that starting grid. We'll get some form of way of telling you about who's where as quickly as we can. But what we can tell you is that these guys will be running today for 80 laps around Atlanta. And 80 laps, Jake, means that fuel and tyres will come into play. Timing of the cautions will be important.
Timing of the cautions most certainly will be. There could be a case of where everyone's running green flag, and if you're looking at green flag racing, we're looking at about 40 minutes for a race, but you start getting those cautions coming in, everyone just gets their rhythm disrupted. They have to come in. 2 tyres might come into play just to get yourself up through. So pretty much, if anyone at the back is there sitting there thinking, you know, I don't have a chance on 4 tyres, 2 tyre strategy can come into play. That 4 tyre strategy, you're going to see the guys at the front really trying to push it here, Will. It's going to be such an interesting event.
Yep, there's a look from our AO coverage brought to you by And One Design, the official graphics partner of RaceSpot TV. And no, I don't have time, sorry. But here we are then. We are going to zoom down and have a look at your starting field. And one of the things that's worth noting at the very front of your field, Jake, it is Club Diach. A lot of their cars are at the front of this field, and that is going to be important for them. We have ourselves then Florida driver in the mix there as well. The 143 machine. Got the number 60 machine as well. Will be towards the front of your filter. I think in terms of this one, Diach have done the first thing, but of course qualifying is one thing. Racing, as we find out time and time again, is something completely different.
Oh, most certainly it is. And you look at racing, you could see teammates come into each other. You know, people want to get that glory of being the #1 driver, and people have to remember this is a team event. You have to be working out where everyone's going to be in terms of the shuffle. You have to make sure that you get yourself in that right position just to make sure that you're not going to be tangling with those teammates. You've got to have a lot of competition with each other. You've got to look out for the other clubs as well. Cars just getting themselves underway now, Will, and this one's going to be incredibly interesting to see.
It will be. Drivers circulate onto track then. And there is the front of your field. There is Club DH, multi-time winners of the World Cup of iRacing. Again, looking for a strong performance here today. We expect Florida to be the team that wouldn't necessarily cause an upset, but they will be right up there, really putting others to the test. But for now, it's all about getting ready to go racing. We've got one driver starting this race from on pit road. And there is the front of your field. Working themselves down the back straight away, as we say. It'll be 80 laps that they will be running for here today. Just the one pace lap. So that pace car is going to pull itself on towards pit road in just one moment's time. And it will mean that we can welcome you to Group B for the World Cup of iRacing. As that pace car pulls down on towards pit lane. Here we are. 80 laps at Atlanta starts now. Got a little bit of two-wide racing already. Drivers heading themselves onto the back straightaway. The first thing has been successful. Let's get all your cars through turn number 1. Can they all complete lap number 1? The answer to that at the moment looks positive. Got a little bit of shuffling going on, but that's okay. They'll complete lap number 1, and it will be DH with the lead, with their number 8 machine of Carson Wergoff leading the way, Jake.
Yeah, Carsten Wegerhoff then has himself a bit of a gap, and it's going to be really difficult here to see these drivers try and put themselves in, but you've got the likes of Joe Beasley and Brian Lockwood looking to upset the party. Gowlitzer now under threat into turns 3 and 4, and down to the inside then goes Beasley, and Beasley for the moment takes second position.
Yep, he moves up one position. He now is going to be the driver chasing down Club DH. The gap is about 0.4 of a second. In towards turn number 1 again. They work themselves through. As it stands right now, we have got all but 2 drivers on track. Actually, no, we've lost one. That's the number 71 machine spinning that car around. That is for Club Florida. And this is the important part there. Michael Hendricks has been able to get that car going once again, but he's going to be down at the very rear of the field. I think that actually he might be in a position where he'll lose a lap before too long as well. So we've had ourselves one spinner in the early going of this event. But out front, most of your drivers look A-OK for the time being. The gap, though, has closed. Carson Werkhoff last time by was about 0.5 tenth slower than Joe Beasley. So that is your big battle at the front of your field. Note, there's the number 71 coming on towards pit road limping. There could be terminal damage there, Jake.
Yeah, there could, and that could be a big moment here in terms of the points. Of course, you score points all the way up, down. If you can't get it going, no points will be scored. So you have to make sure you get as many cars as you can. Now, Carsten Wegerhoff at the front of the field, he doesn't have that draft, and that's what's been so crucial at the front of the field for the driver of Joe Beasley, the number 60, now looking to go down to the inside and inherit the race lead here, trying to help Brian Lockwood along as well there in 3rd position, down to the inside. And I think for the moment, things are going to remain side by side, but Beasley will now take his first lap leg.
Yep, so Florida are leading all of a sudden, and it could well be a case that Florida will be 1-2 before too long, because now Lockwood down to the inside of Wegerhoff, and that means that all of a sudden, Florida, who didn't qualify that well, have got a car that looks absolutely fantastic in race pace. It's now 2 Florida drivers from 4 Club DH drivers. Then you've got yourself another Florida driver running himself in P number 7. That is the driver of Eddie Moran right now in the treble 9 machine behind. You've got a long way to anyone else, and thankfully for Florida, Jonas, They've got 2 more Florida drivers in the mix. Texas right now, absolutely nowhere to be seen. Their first driver, I believe, is in P number 11 on track.
Yes, that is Lynn Kinchlow. Lynn Kinchlow in P number 11 for Club Texas. I was looking earlier, actually coming back to your almost lead battle. It was Karsten Wegerhoof. Karsten Wegerhoof getting really loose when he was passed by Brian Lockwood of Club Florida, and as a result, Karsten is coming under pressure from Oliver Gavlitsa as well for that 3rd place. So it's going to be a little bit of inter-club battling, but right now it looks like Florida has the pace early on in their race setup, and this is what it's going to come down to. What is your race pace and how long are those tires going to last? We expect around 15 to 20 laps in green stints is the optimal time of your tires. As you can see there, Oliver Gavlitsa passing now Karsten Wegerhoof for that 3rd place, and Karsten is really having trouble with his pace early on in this race. He did a 29.8 his time by, and if he's not going to pick it up soon, then he's going to be passed by the entire train of DH cars. Right now it doesn't matter too much, but they hope that Oliver has enough pace to chase down Club Florida.
Yeah, we did see there the Texas driver losing a lot of positions just because he got himself loose on the exit, well, the middle to exit part of the corner. As a consequence, now well down in the 16th place. There we can have a look and see him once again, Lynn Kinchlow in the number 44 machine. So struggles right now for Texas. Struggles also going on for, we got a driver off track, another Texas driver. That is Brett Trozen right now. He's limping that car on towards pit road. Well, he's on the back straight away right now, but Jake, not going well at all for Texas.
No, it certainly isn't. You have to remember how many Texas drivers are actually racing in this one. And the answer is, by my reckoning, 2. So they are in all forms of trouble right now. Iberia, absolutely nowhere to be seen. No cars running then in this oval split. So their day is pretty much done as well. It's a straight one-on-one fight then between Florida and Club DH right now. In Texas, well, thank you for coming. But at the moment, it's been all sorts of troubles.
We saw Karsten Wegerhoff lose another position. He's now in 4th place. It's his own teammate that passed him, Oliver Golitzer. But it looks as though that Wegerhoff's tyres, he might have just used them too heavy, too quickly. Maybe the balance of that car is not perfect for him right now, Jay. But he is losing time, and he is now being caught by his own teammate, Christian Silsman. However, last time by was a bit of a better lap. I think the draft here, it's not necessarily important in terms of staying with your teammate. I think it's more important in terms of making sure that you've got the balance that you need of the race car, as they are 2 wide, 2 deep, Club Florida and Club DH.
Yeah, you've got to be incredibly careful. We've got Duquette there and Taylor looking to go at it right now. Marion Hensel there as well with Patrick Kopp, Florian Oot and Daniel Kurtz as well. You can see they're all there and you're already up to the top there. You can see a little tap of the wall, a big slide and into the wall goes that car straight across. And Florian Oot's involved there. Engines are blown and it's all started to happen here, Will.
That is a DH driver and a Florida driver, both out of the picture for the time being. Let's get a replay of that one, if we can, for you. There we are, in towards turn number 1 and 2. There was the Florida driver just coming down. Nothing the 4 car could have done. That one will go down as a racing incident pretty clearly there, Jake, because of the fact that, well, the car is the Florida car running on the outside line. Nothing really he could have done. What goes up always comes down at a track like this. But it's more important to note, that was a Club Florida driver at the start taking out a Club Florida driver.
Yeah, you just have to be incredibly careful in a situation like this. You may be battling with drivers that you normally see on a day-to-day basis in and around your club, but at the end of the day, you've got to make sure that you're not hitting your teammates and losing 2 lots of points compared to the one-on-one that we saw there between DH and Florida. You've got to be incredibly careful. Vega Hoffman now back into 3rd position, coming back into it, so maybe his setup works better on a later run, you could say right now, because the timer is starting to come down on these laps, and you can already see lap times now starting to hit 30 seconds plus.
Yeah, and that'll be a case of, if this event stays green then, Eunice, when do you come on towards pit road? Do you always want to have the freshest tyres, or is it a case of you wanting to eke out that stint as much as possible so you don't get caught a lap down?
No, absolutely not. You want to pit, especially in this weather. It's 45 degrees Celsius on track temp. That is really, really hot. The tires are going to wear much quicker than they usually do. So these drivers know better, and they know that it's not going to, tires are not lasting long. We see already some of the lap time starting to drop a little bit. So I'm expecting pit stops going to be early rather than late, because when you pit too late, you're gonna lose perhaps 1 or 2 seconds a lap in a track like Atlanta. It's so fast of a track that you can't really leave your pit stop too late. You gotta do it early.
And also, what you might want to do is just split some of your field out a little bit by 2, maybe 3 laps in us, just to make sure that not everyone is doing exactly the same, in case you do get issues on towards pit road, someone spinning, a caution, for example. You don't want to have all your drivers stuck in the same situation.
Well, yes and no. We did it at least in group stage. I can't say anything about final tactics, but in group stage, what we did at Finland is that we basically employed the same strategy. We did that in the finals last year too, in the second split. The guys all had the same strategy. They ran in a train, and as a result, they were able to help each other along. Perhaps the leader using their tires a little bit more than the other guys, acting sort of as a rabbit or as a hare, like you see in long distance running, for example.
Yeah.
And you see that guys using the tire, some teams employ a different strategy, some may not have a separate strategy at all. They do what the drivers want to do. So it all comes down to strategy, leadership, and how well a team is formed. How well is your team communicating together? Do they have a team speak? Do they have a mumble? Do they have a radio? Some communication with each other. That is the key, as Brian Lockwood is already getting loose in P number 2.
Yeah, we're just seeing on board with Carsten Wegerhoff as he has been able to move himself back into that 3rd position. And you just see how he's taken a much tighter line through turn 1 and 2 compared to the 143 machine of Lockwood, who has to kind of run in the middle of the racetrack. It seems as though, Jake, that car cannot hold the bottom right now with any decent speed, as Lockwood is just going to get gobbled up, I think, by the number 8 machine before too long. 20 laps in. We're told the tyres will be good for about 20 laps. We could well be looking at a 3-stop strategy almost under green. That is, well, 2 stops, 3 stops maybe, depending on just how quickly these guys want to get onto fresh rubber. This is fascinating stuff.
Oh, it absolutely is. And Wegerhoff, for all that he was struggling in that opening stint, his car is coming alive now and is all over the back of Brian Lockwood. Lockwood doing an incredibly good job, though, you have to say, Will, of just holding things out for the time being. You can see through 3 and 4 and back onto the front straight once again. You can see Lockwood just holding things out there for the moment. You can see Wegerhoff has no real indication of needing to make the move right now. His time's 30.7s right now. Wegerhoff's last lap at 30.8. Compare that to how he was chasing down. He was doing 30.4s, 30.5s. So you have to say, Wegerhoff in arguably the best position on circuit.
Yeah, and one of the things about that is that having the fastest car doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have the fastest stint. And Wegerhoff then have a good run through the centre of turn 3 and 4 on towards the front straight. Another little twitch there for Lockwood. That will set up this side-by-side situation in towards turn 1. Carsten Wegerhoff, let's move him back up into 2nd place there. And this is the thing, Jake. Not always having the fastest car at the start of the motor race is only so much. And if it comes down to a 5-lap shootout at the end, clearly it seems to be that Florida has got a better race car. But over the longer stint, it seems to me that just maybe Club DH might have more to give in the latter 5-10 laps of a run.
Yeah, and Lockwood's actually just clipped the wall coming out of 3 and 4. That's going to allow this car then of Daniel Newman to come down to the inside. So you can see Lockwood is in all sorts of trouble. I saw on that last previous lap, Will, he had 2 wiggles coming out. He had a wiggle on the straight trying to correct himself. Lockwood's in all sorts of trouble right now. In my opinion, has to come onto pit road right now.
Yeah, and you just saw another one off the exit of turn number 2. That car is all forms of loose right now. And Brian Lockwood, of course, is a household name in the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series, powered by iRacing. So the question would be then, Jonas, if Lockwood's struggling, what are the rest of his teammates dealing with right now? Because they have all fallen back quite a bit as well. Eddie Moran in the Trouble 9 machine, still running himself in 6th place. But a lot of these guys really starting to struggle now.
Yes, and we see Michael Hendricks of Club Florida already coming towards the pit road from P number 17. But yeah, I agree with you, and I think this is going to come down to Brian Lockwood not having perhaps the setup he is used to. This is the problem with club races. You have to make a setup that preferably is suitable for everyone. Now, you can adjust them individually, but you have to have a base setup, a good base setup. And I think Brian Lockwood right now doesn't have the kind of setup that he is used to, and as a result the car is doing strange things, so to speak, in a long stint, and he is right now having very much trouble, much more so than I'm used to.
Yeah, and we just saw there, Hendricks, he actually stayed out. He had a half spin, but he did the right thing, Jonas, of keeping it down on the apron out of the racing line.
Yes, I correct my mistake there, and it was looking like he was coming towards the pit road, not doing so. Meanwhile, we have Patrick Kopp of Club DH in the pit road from position number 15. He was starting this race in P number 8, and he is the first one out of the lead lap drivers who is going to come down the pit road, so I am expecting others to follow suit soon. I don't think they can one-stop this race, not on full greens.
There we are, 13.9 seconds top there for Patrick Kopp as he comes back out onto the track. That gives us the opportunity then to talk about one other thing, Jonas, and that is getting on and off of pit road here. They have got to re-merge in the back straight away. That's not the thing that I think is important. I have made mistakes at this track so many times in high-pressure situations. It's where the pit cones are. We'll have to try and get a decent graphic of this later on. But where the pit cone is compared to actually where the line is, they're two different things, and it can catch people out as we've got drivers on pit road. Joe Beasley is on the lane.
Yes, they are on the pit road, and pit exit is very, very crucial here in Atlanta. That is correct. You can lose so many seconds on a green flag pit entry as well as pit exit. You can lose valuable time. You can make a mistake. You can spin up the track on cold tires. Joe Beasley, coming back to the track, and let's see how he tackles that difficult pit exit here at Atlanta. Just running right on the edge of that apron, kissing the white line, but he is doing well so far as is expected of the leading driver.
And he's doing that because there's a little bit of banking there. It is flat on the inner part of the apron, but the outside lip does have a bit of banking, which basically makes the transition between the physical racetrack and the apron less severe. Compare that, for example, to Texas, where it is flat all the way around. You put two wheels below that white line, you can feel it pretty much immediately. What that does mean is now leading the way is the driver of Oliver Gorlitzer in the number 36 Club DH machine. More drivers than on pit road right now. The number 6 car in 6th place, Daniel Newman, doing himself a pit stop, and others, Jake, are all doing the same. We currently now have a group of 6 drivers who haven't pitted, although Eddie Moran will become your new leader because he stays out and Gorlitzer comes in.
Yeah, and Gorlitzer was actually on the grass there. He was incredibly wide coming in. He actually clipped the cone, so all eyes going on that. Maybe he couldn't slow the car down enough. That might be something to look at there. But you're seeing that undercut now is starting to work out. You saw Vegard actually lose the position once again to Brian Lockwood. So you have to say right now here, Will, it's going to be a case of who's willing to undercut more to lose that time on the end. Gorlitzer, have to say, has made a big, big risk.
Yeah, and there you can see knocking over the yellow cone on towards pit road. More than anything else, the question's going to be, will he get a speeding penalty? I think that we'll find out before too long. I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, I think he has got a speeding penalty because he came in with a huge head of steam, and little mistakes like that will be the difference in something like the World Cup of iRacing. Look at Gorlitzer. He's now down into 14th, 15th. Speeding penalty then for Gorlitzer, and he is going to be absolutely livid with that one, Jake.
Yeah, he is, and he only has himself to blame. He was out on his own. He had no one else around him, and when the time came, the pressure told, and he has pretty much crumbled underneath it now. So you have to say, parity resumes again. Florida again have that 1-2, but you look back, Vegerhoff third, Newman fourth, but looking back into 5th position, it is all DH down up to about 8th, 9th place. 9th place now for Eddie Moran, who's just come out of pit road. So DH now have that big stranglehold. They don't have to go for that race win.
Yeah, Marty Verana currently leading the way for Club Florida. We did see Lynn on pit road, number 44, Kinchlow, earlier on, just coming on towards pit road. Texas did, I think, lead a lap. Dustin Hamilton in 2nd place right now. This is interesting. This is that flip strategy I was talking to you about. Marty Vrana is now on his 34th lap of this event. He is in the situation where he might just about, Jake, be able to one-stop this. Everyone else is on a minimum 2-stopper. I think that Marty might be doing a little trick here to help cover that team if needs be, although Joe Beasley is coming. He's back up into 2nd place as Dustin Hamilton now goes down into P number 3.
Yeah, and Hamilton's tyres look absolutely awful. He clipped the wall out of 3 and 4, and you know what? He is really struggling, and in my opinion, that one stop is not working right now, and it's pretty much 2 sacrificial laps. Hamilton will come down onto the lane then as things stand, but for the time being, keeping himself out and away and out of trouble is Marty Verana as things stand right now, and he's going to get himself past Hendricks soon, but you can see he's losing about 2 to 3 seconds a lap here, Will, which in my opinion any longer, and it's not worth it.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And you just see that gap between Joe Beasley and Marty Vrana has come down from 7.3 seconds to 3.5 seconds in the space of about a lap and a half. Dustin Hamilton then will come out of pit road for Club Florida, maybe on a one-stop strategy. We're not sure. We'll keep you up to date with that one. We're going to want to go back, though, to a race lead to show you this one. Marty Vrana has now done 35.5 laps on this one stint alone. Riding on board of him, is he going to come on towards pit road this time by? No, he stays out. He will do another lap, but Joe Beasley has closed another 3 seconds, and that means we should have a change for the race lead in towards turn number 1. Joe Beasley goes back to the point, Jake.
Yes, he does, and the big difference is 25 kilometers an hour through the mid part of the corner. Marty Vrana, 25 kilometers an hour in any sort of sport says that is quite a bit of time, but especially on a course where you are going at speeds of 300 kilometers an hour, that is just gobbled up. And now Marty Vrana in all sorts of trouble. Lockwood will be the next one to come along, and then you got the likes of Vegahoff there, Newman there, also in there, and you got that massive Diach train to come along from that. So you have to say he's now pulled himself onto the lane. So you know what? Time's ticked away. 37 laps on that opening stint, Will. That screams two-stop.
It does. He might still have to two-stop. I don't think towards the end of the event, you consider the fact that a pit entry to pit exit is 40 seconds here, Jonas. So in the event that he's going to try and one-stop it, the last 10 laps of this stint alone, he will end up losing about 40 seconds. It's not worth risking it. What he can do, though, is now 2 blitzingly fast stints. I would almost get him to readjust his strategy, realise he's got 40 laps to go, do 20 lap stints, and just blitz it.
I disagree, Wilter. Normally that's what I would do, but I don't think... there's contact! Daniel Newman and Krista Nelson have contact exiting turn number 2, as Daniel Newman is in fact lapping Krista Nelson, and Nelson giving him no room whatsoever. Nelson is being very, very aggressive here indeed, as he's being a lap car. Of course, you don't give any extra space to the clubs, but that I'm not a referee, I'm not a judge, but I think there could have been some reconsideration made there. In either way, coming back to your original point, I think if I was Marty Vrana, I would actually keep at my original strategy, keep the one stop and hope for yellows. Because I don't think, I was looking at Marty's driving, and I think he's driving well, he's driving consistently, but I don't think he quite has the raw pace to pull off the 2 bleaching stop strategy. So what he should do is go with that one stop, stay with that one stop, and hope for the yellows. Because if he's going to run a separate strategy, then you have to risk it. He's going to lose it all right now if he changes his strategy.
Okay. That's an interesting one. We were just trying to show you a graphic. We can't show you that graphic, so what we'll do is we'll show you the top 3 then. Joe Beasley leads away by Brian Lockwood by about 6.6 seconds. Then a further second back is Karsten Wegerhoff. Having a look at the lap times between Lockwood and Wegerhoff, we are looking at 2 tenths faster Wegerhoff compared to Brian Lockwood. Now, Lockwood would get himself about this stage in the stint and would start fading, Jake. It's going to be a case of how well Lockwood can preserve those tyres this time around.
Yes, and certainly a driver of his caliber has to make sure that he is putting himself in that situation where he is holding off that charge of Diach. Vegahoff, you have to say, has been that star for the Diach team as things stand right now. But Brian Lockwood, he has his own set of issues. We saw how incredibly loose he could be when those tyres started to go away. His setup is not the best in the world by just looking at it alone. And you can see Vegahoff 29.8 last time by, Lockwood a 30 flat, so another 2 tenths coming down. That gap is under a second. And having to pull out of the way of Michael Hendricks there, didn't have to make the room, but did. But now you can see Vegahoff really right in the sights.
Yep, moving on up is Wegerhoff, and so far in this event, he has been one of those drivers for Club Diach who's been able to take the fight to Club Florida. Of course, we still have one other event to come after this one. That will be the road race, which will be here, of course, also on RaceSpot TV, streaming live on iRacing Live. If you are after the Pro Series of Road Racing, you can catch that one now on Apex Racing, Apex TV even, streaming live also on iRacing Live, as we also have ourselves 2 more groups to go. The Global Sim Racing channel will be here with coverage of both those groups a little bit later on here this afternoon, streaming also on iRacing Live. Want to have a quick run through some of the retirees very quickly. We have got DH drivers, 2 of them classified as out. Florian Ut and Sasha Wessler involved. Vega Hoff is going to make the move then down to the inside of Brian Lockwood. Well, by the time we started talking about it, it was almost complete. Coming off the corner, yeah, he should easily have enough room there, should the number 8 machine as they work themselves down in towards that first corner once again. He should, yeah, he's through now. He's easily through there, Jake. And number 8 means he's moved himself up into second. So now it's Florida, then DH, then Florida, then DH.
Yeah, it is, but you have to look behind that as well. It's DH, then Florida. So Florida really struggling right now to get any sort of ground here. They've got those top 2, but aside from that, what do they have? They've got an 8th place, but they're going to hemorrhage so many points in the long run that they've got so much to do on their roadside, which you could argue maybe is a little bit weaker than this oval side as well. So Vega Hoff doing a great job then, and this oval team of Germany, very understated, but doing a great job. Gap down 6.7 to the lead.
Yeah, and DH, like Club Finland, quite often they are discounted in the oval side in favor of some of the American clubs, but both of them have some fantastic talent as Lockwood is falling away dramatically already from the rear of Carsten Wegerhoff. And now you'll notice that Daniel Newman is closing. Last time by, Newman 4 tenths of a second faster than Brian Lockwood. That is going to be our talking point for the next few laps, because that 1 second gap will go before you know it, Jake.
Yeah, Newman's actually the fastest man on track as things stand right now, so Newman has certainly found a turn of pace. You can see he is right there. He'll be within under a second this time by. It was 1 second when they last crossed the line. This time when they crossed the line, that gap will certainly have changed. It's now 7/10 of a second, so in the next 4 laps, expect to see Brian Lockwood come under considerable pressure, and I don't think he's been under a pressure like this before, where he's had to be that leading light. And you can see he almost clips the wall once again there on the outside of 1 and 2, so already you can see he's really struggling, and 2 or 3 times he's having to resort to that high line to really make things sure that he can get through the corner. He's struggling. Gap, almost nothing.
Yeah, 3 tenths of a second. We are past the halfway point. We are already 50 laps into this 80-lap event. What we'll do is we're going to have ourselves a nice little gap between the oval race, which is just breezing by the way, and the road race, which will be here on Racebot TV shortly. But this has been green lights of flag, and I will give credit to these drivers. There's been 1 or 2 little tags here and there, Jonas, but overall the quality of driving has been fantastic, as Newman is going to move himself past Brian Lockwood. We also just saw Eddie Moran move himself up into 7th place. Marian Hensel down into P number 8. Newman up into 3rd place, Jonas.
Yes, Daniel Newman certainly showing the pace that DH has on the long run. And I agree with you, the quality of driving has been really solid. We've seen, as you said, a couple of tags, a little bit of inter-club relationship action, so to speak. A little bit of tagging, as Christian Nelson also moves himself past Brian Lockwood and takes that lap back. So Brian Lockwood seems to be lacking in pace in the long stint so far. Let's see if he can improve on that. But the quality of driving has been good. And a long green stint is, I don't think Florida was perhaps expecting this. Because they look, as we established earlier on, they look fast early going, but then in the later stint, they seem to be losing pace compared to DH, for example. And now, this is something, it's a strategic decision, as we have a car coming onto the pit road. That seems to be Mike A. Taylor of Club Florida from the 9th place. Mike Taylor coming onto the pit road, and it's quite early for his second stop, no?
Yeah, but this is the graphic I want to show you. This is why some drivers are thinking about coming towards pit road already, because look at the last lap there, 30.993. That is 2 seconds slower than the fastest lap Joe Beasley has done in this moto event. And you can just hear, let's listen in. Let's listen to the engine noise for Joe Beasley's car as he works himself down towards turn number 1. I like to call that something called baby throttling there. What I want to now do is just compare that to Daniel Newman heading himself down in towards turn 3 and 4. See if
Joe's pitting. Excuse me, Will. Joe's pitting.
Yeah, so maybe he was hearing. But yeah,
maybe he was. He's coming onto the pit road.
Yeah.
He's coming onto the pit road this time by, and I think rest of Club Florida is due to follow. So they have perhaps realized that okay, they're not gonna have the pace in the long run. So we pit early, and then try to establish some pace on DH that way. And you know what? It's not a bad strategy.
Yes, Christian Silman coming in towards pit road for Club DH, potentially just to cover this one off a little bit. But Beasley is on the lane right now, making his second stop of the day. There we can see the number 60 machine. We'll go on board with him. So we've got more drivers coming on. Wegerhoff there. I think that's a direct response, Jake.
I think it absolutely is, and well, you look at it, 25 laps to go as they come to cross the line. Wegerhoff has to cover the move then. He's got to make sure that he doesn't allow the likes of, say, a Brian Lockwood to come and cover it in. Lockwood's going to come in and try and cover that. Newman also in on the lane, so everyone now is just jumping at the gun. Moran in also. This is huge, Will, and nobody wants to lose out in the undercut.
They don't. They don't at all. Lockwood then. Let's go back on board with him. He should be pushing that foot down to the floor in about 5 seconds time. He goes out. So second stop done for him. Club DH have brought some of their drivers on towards pit road as well. We talked about Daniel Newman has come in to do a stop. Wegerhoff has come in to do a stop. In terms of the battle out front, it is worth noting. I'm just trying to see, look at my timing and scoring screen actually, to see Beasley has easily got there. Carsten Wegerhoff ahead, or he's well ahead of him on track actually, by about 7-8 seconds actually, Jonas. So Beasley's done all he needs to do. Now the question for him will be, does he just floor this one, or does he take it easy, knowing he's got to do 25 laps in this final set of tyres?
I think he needs to save his tires a little bit early on. I don't know how the setup works. Now, it could be the kind of setup that needs to be run really, really fast early on, and then later on, as there is a driver with engine troubles, it's Michael Hendricks from pin number 17. He has blown his engine on the back straight. He actually spun, he got tapped by a little bit by the car of Christian M. Silman of Club DH, and as a result, he's blown his engine on the back straight. No caution out, but yes, Club Florida, what I think Beasley needs to do is look at the situation, observe the situation early on for 1 or 2 laps, see if the gap goes down, and have those tires ready for battle in case there is Club DH drivers catching him up later on. He needs to observe a little bit, maybe try a different strategy, that or he needs to put such a gap that they don't even try to catch him up. It's either or. Either break the spine or be clever and observe.
Daniel Newman, fresh tyres getting past Kristen Nelson without real difficulty there at all. Nelson hasn't yet pitted on this sequence of pit stops, so Kristen Nelson down into 7th place on track. I'm just having a look in terms of the only person who hasn't yet pitted for a second time is Marty Vrana. Worth remembering, of course, Jonas, this is a driver that went longer than anyone else in that first stint. It'll be interesting to see, A, when he comes on towards pit road, more importantly, what he can do with tyres that will only have to last about 15 laps.
Well, I don't think Marty, I still say that Marty is going to run that one-stop strategy. We had a discussion early on, but if there is going to be yellows, then that is going to change everything. Now, if Marty does come in to the pit road at the later part of this race, then what he has to do is just, nail his pit stop and then run full throttle for the rest of those 15 laps and hope he can pick up some positions. But I'm still maintaining the stance that I don't think he should do it anymore. That ship has sailed, and right now he's just clinging onto it and hoping that he can swim instead of sink in the currents of over racing.
Having a look down through your field. Retirees, I still think, might be the important part here today. We have a Texas driver, we have 2 DH drivers. We also have the driver of Robert Cartwright for Florida, who is going nowhere very, very slowly. There is Carsten Wegerhoff then, on board with Carsten. 4.4 seconds to gap. Let's listen in. Just hear the difference, Jake. I want to be fair, I'll do one board with Lockwood as well. You can just hear the difference into turn 1, into turn 2. We're listening to Lockwood. So much more aggressive there on the throttle pedal throughout this. Getting off, he's lifting off less. He's getting onto it earlier, and that is where you gain or lose 2 seconds at a track like Atlanta, a lap.
Yeah, you certainly do, and it is really beneficial here for Vegahoff because actually, look at the front of the field. He is starting to close that down just a little bit. The gap now 4.1 seconds. I think time is going to be his big nemesis here, Will. I think he's going to run out of laps with 15 to go in 2 laps' time. But Joe Beasley, he's done a really good job. But Vegahoff, he's managed to make that setup come alive. Granted, he hasn't had the best of pit stops in the form of what he's had to work with, but Brian Lockwood, he has really underperformed. Despite being in 3rd place, he struggled, and a driver of his caliber, he really hasn't turned up for the dance.
Last time by, Wegerhoff was almost 3/10 of a second faster than Joe Beasley. This time by, another 10th. He needs something more than this. Ideally, a caution right now for at this racetrack will help Jonas Club Diaz more than Florida, because they'd all come in, they'd all get tyres. I think Florida's tyres peak about 7-8 laps into a run, then Diaz would have the advantage afterwards.
Yes, if the caution comes out, it's advantage Diaz. But if the caution comes out, say with 10 to go, it's advantage Florida. And of course, cautions breed cautions, let's remember that. There is always the possibility of a one little mistake. It doesn't take much in the oval. The cars are in a tight pack after the restart, and doesn't take much, and the whole complexion of this motor race, as it stands right now, could be thrown out of the window. Will.
Yep. 4 seconds. It looks as though that nothing yet is okay. And we have been green, for those of you wondering, all day long here on Racebot TV. Since the drop of the green flag, this has been a green race. And, well, it does mean that the gaps have come up a little bit compared to what we were listening to, so what we were seeing even earlier on in the day. But we have still got a nice little battle going on, Jake. We have Florida versus Diaz for P6, and of course, Martin Hensel is on fresher rubber. Marty Vrana is not.
Yeah, and that's going to be a very crucial factor. Marty Vrana then is going to be caught down hand, foot and finger right now from Hensel. Hensel a lap down in the 99 compared to the leaders, but Hensel's 29.4 his last lap compared to Marty Vrana 31.5. That one is going to be eaten up within the blink of an eye, and with 13 to go, 12 to go now he crosses the line, and Beasley with 11 to go when he crosses the flag. You have to say, Marty Vrana, he is under immense amounts of pressure and there's not much he can do.
Nothing at all there. 3.7 seconds, 3.4 seconds is the gap there. 2 seconds a lap slower, 11 laps to go. The key thing here for Vrana, though, Jake, will be the case of making sure he doesn't try and push it too hard. And I say this all the time in endurance racing, run to your own strategy, not necessarily the strategy of others. And on a strategy like this, he has to remember that.
Yeah, he certainly does. He can't just go looking around and expecting to, push himself and be quicker than Joe Beasley who's coming up behind him. He's got to be realistic and know he is going to have to let his teammate and race leader go past at some stage, and when that happens he knows that Marian Hensel is going to be coming like a hurricane right now. You can see Marty Vrana now heading himself through 3 and 4 once again, and that time's ticking way up all the way to the top, almost to the wall, and you can see just how much room he leaves as the race leader goes by.
Yeah, but what that did is it meant that Hensel, look at Hensel, he's closed that gap down to now just a couple of tenths of a second through turn number 1. Done. Easy, simple as that. Eddie Moran, club mate there of Vrana, is the next person along the road, 1.6 seconds back. Still potential though, Jonas, for him to get a top 10 if he doesn't pit. 10 laps to go. It's a time if he is going to stay out, he just has to hold on. Let's go on board of him.
Yes, let's go on board of him and see how he tackles the racetrack now. It is, of course, with Marty Vrana, as you can see on board with him, he has to be really careful on the old tires, not to make mistakes, not to spin, not to wear those tires down anymore, and I think he realizes the situation. He can't realistically battle against anyone on the fresher rubber right now, so what he does is stays out of the way, tries to keep within the top 10, and even though it looks bad for Marty right now, I'm not saying it's a mistake, it's a strategy, it's a different strategy, and let's just say that for Marty, he's one member of Club Florida, and I think he was the one electing to take the shot in case there is a late yellow, in case there's yellow just at the right time, the convenient time. And let's remember that according to calculations, which are usually incorrect, but according to calculations, the one stop was actually faster, confirmed by multiple sources. So whether it's down to their strategy not fitting it, as could be the case, since Florida's setup is fast earlier on, as Marty Vrana gets passed by Karsten Wegerhof once again, as well as the lap-down car of Christian Olsen. He has Christian M. Silman next up behind him. I would say about 5 seconds behind him, but yes, the one-stop strategy was on paper faster. But crucially and importantly, these races are not run on paper.
No, they never are. They never are. When we get ourselves to the next, the road event, things are slightly easier to work out, especially oval racing, especially the track conditions. It can be very hard to understand how best to attack the racetrack. And of course, all the teams, all the clubs have been pretty much working in secrecy to make sure that they can come to the track and they have as big an advantage as possible. Down then to 5 laps to go at the line. Joe Beasley, we haven't really talked about him much recently, Jake, but he's been phenomenal today. Still 3.2 seconds over Karsten Wegerhof, still just cruising along out front.
Yeah, nothing really more that he needs to do, Joe Beasley. He's just kept himself out of trouble, and the moment that he got past at the very start of this race, he managed to get that gap of a second, 2 seconds. He broke the draft around a circuit like this, so crucial here in terms of NASCAR racing, and pretty much he never looked back. And if Joe Beasley is what Florida has, well, you have to say he has certainly proved that Florida can certainly mix it in these circles, and they have to make sure that he's done everything that he can. The team's tried everything it can, but at the moment it seems to still be a losing game. Wegerhof in second, you know, he's still done an incredible job for his team.
Oh yeah, absolutely sterling job he has done. In fact, all of these guys, again, have done a really, really top sterling effort by keeping this race green. If we do go to caution now, that would be at the end of the motor race. We will not have time to get back to green flag running. We have got a little battle going on down in your mid-pack, and it is between Texas and Florida. Every point matters, remember. Lynn Kinchlow in the number 44 machine. Then David Schreck going all forms of weird into turn number 1 there. Going to tag the wall. Could this be the caution? He tried very hard. He does keep it together on track just for a moment, but that could have been our first caution, Jake.
Yeah, it really could have, and I think it's really just shown just how everyone is trying to force themselves to get that one position. And you know what? That could be the difference there. Kinchlow making the moves. Vrana now has dropped the position to Stevenman, been lapped now by Lockwood. And you look at where the likes of, say, Daniel Kurtz is with just a few laps to go. That could be the potential that if Martin Vrana is struggling on 32-second lap times, and you've got Daniel Kurtz doing those 31-second lap times, it might be a case if Vrana makes a mistake that we see it in the last 3 laps.
Yeah, and what happened to David Schreck was just basically the case of trying to take too much corner, turn the wheel too much into the last part of that dog leg. Out front, Joe Beasley leads the way. Florida have done the minimum of what they needed to do. Get the win on the oval side. Take the fight to Diach on the road course. But more important to note as we head ourselves to the white flag, there being one more lap of this motor race to go. It's not been domination of one club. Your top 5 drivers is, and I quote, Florida Diach, Florida Diach, Florida. It is very, very close. Actually, I take that back. It's actually Diach running themselves in P number 5. Then you've got Florida driver in P number 6. So 3 of each driver, 3 of each club then in your top 6. Diach versus Florida. It will go to the road course. Joe Beasley will win for Club Florida. He will take initial spoils in Group B here today. Second place will go to Karsten Wegerhof. Third place will go to Brian Lockwood. There is Wegerhof, and there is Brian Lockwood now, passing the start-finish straight. Daniel Newman will come home in 4th, with Marion Hensel in 5th, and then Eddie Moran rounds out your top 6. Just see there, heading himself onto the apron. Patrick Kopp, P number 7. And then this is what Jake's been talking about. 8th place is Diach. 9th place is Diach. Then you got yourself another Florida driver in P number 10. So Florida win the race. They don't have it all their own way. It'll be fascinating to see what will happen when we get ourselves to the road course, which will be in about 1 hour's time here on RaceBot TV. Let's get a look at your final race results then from Road Atlanta. The first part of our coverage here today. As here we are. And there is the picture. It really is a tale of 2 clubs. You've got 4 Florida drivers and 6 Diach drivers inside your top 10. Beasley wins it. from Wagerhoff. Then Lockwood, Newman, Hensel, Moran, Kopp, Stillman, Kurt, and Vrana. Interesting to note, only 5 drivers finished on the lead lap. Of course, we were green from lights out to the end of this event. Green to checkered, we were green here today. Rest of the results. Well, your first Texas driver, Lynn Kitchlow there. We saw him towards the end of our broadcast holding on to 11th as David Shriek was just a little bit loose in towards turn 1, was not able to put the pressure on at the end. Then you've got yourself Oliver Gorlitzer, 13th. Speeding penalty on pit road for him, cost him a chance of a top 10. Kristen Nelson, Mike Taylor, Dustin Hamilton, Douglas Doucette, and Michael Hendricks. All Florida drivers. They wish they could have got top 10s. They weren't able to get themselves really breaking into that situation. Florian Oates out of the event. Brent Troisen out of the event as well. And then finally, Sasha Wessler and Robert Cartwright round out your field here today. Let us step aside for a few minutes. We'll be back with more after these messages. You're watching Racebot TV, streaming live on iRacing Live. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Racebot TV. There's a look at your top 10. Once again, Florida from Diach, Florida, Diach, Florida. But it's worth noting that it's the top 10 for each club that will get themselves points. There's 6 Diach drivers inside your top 10. But then it's worth noting that in P number 11 through 20, there's only 2 Club Diach drivers. So the fact that they had Sasha Wessler retired from the event, Jake, I did say will be something to keep a little bit of an eye on. That would tighten things up just a little bit heading into the road event.
Yeah, I certainly think it will. And you look at the situation that they've got. If only the top 10 drivers are scoring points, and you look at the likes of, say, the club of Diach, and they've only got 8 drivers or something like that, it does sort of scream out, they've got 2 slots unavailable where they're not scoring any points at all. And if Florida do have those extra drivers, then they are scoring those more points. And, at the end of the day, you got to sometimes have quantity over quality. It doesn't matter how bad those last 2 drivers are, as long as they're driving around circulating and make it to the end of the flag here, Will, they score some very valuable points, and that might just be the tipping point as they head to road.
Yeah. In terms of Group A, Finland win out. That's not really that surprising, of course. Finland coming into this one, defending champions, looking to do it again. They get themselves 1,356 points in the 2 events combined. Club Scandinavia come home in 2nd place. Australia, New Zealand in 3rd. It was close between Australia, New Zealand and Scandinavia. Australian drivers involved in difficulties on the road event. And then Club Asia, 92 points. But they did only field 2 drivers overall. Jonas, Finland, well, some familiar names there as I have a look through. Their oval team comprised of Mikko Nitimaki, Joni Sankinen, Mika Happinen, Pano Lenayoto, Joni Häkkinen, Mikko Nuri, Jussi Haitala, Tommy Hacker, J.D. Nylander and Kim Eriksson. 9 of them scored points. 9 of them, the only one that didn't was Kim Eriksson. They got themselves 589 points on the oval. That, ironically, is more, that's a really, really high point score. More than anyone else. They won that one by being dominant in both road and oval.
Yes, and this is not what we expected. We expected, as usual is the case with Finland, as is the case with us, almost any European club, that we would be stronger on the road side than the oval side. Well, that was not the case today, but thankfully the oval guys brought out the core of victory, and in the road side, even though there was some calamities. And I would say that this could be expected of Imola in GD1. Let's talk about that later on. But it was great job by Tommi Hahka, Jere Seppälä, Simo Leppänen, Jukka Savolainen, Teemu Iivonen, Teemu Toikka, Joonas Nukarinen, Marko Penttinen, Sebastian Lindqvist and Hannu Eetu-Paltta as well on the oval side to bring out the victory. And the key thing to know about these oval guys, I don't think it has been touched on, so I will mention it. In Finland we have a national oval series that runs throughout the year. We run 2 seasons per year on the oval side, so these guys are all regulars from the oval side, apart from Teemu Iivonen, who, as we know, is an ex-NASCAR Anti-Peak Series driver brought to you by iRacing. So Teemu Iivonen, of course, being sort of the outsider, but aside from that, we had some top guys, top dogs on the oval that run against each other throughout the year, and when they put their heads together, when they really put an effort into making a setup, this is what can happen. And it can be expected that in the finals we have some strong additions as well on the Finland side, and in the road side, well, in the road side we were always expected to be fast, so it looks good from Finnish point of view. And now what you have to note right now, that if Florida or Diaz, which one is going to be against us against Finland from the Group B, they are going to have to find out something from their pockets, especially on the oval side. Because I think as it stands right now, Finland is unexpectedly strong on the oval.
Yeah, I agree. They got 767 points on road, 589 on road. I'm going to put that into perspective for you in just one moment. The winning, that was the road team we talked about, not the oval team that got themselves the points, Mikko, etc. In terms of oval, that oval team was Tommi Hacker, Jesse Sapara, Simo Leppänen, Jukka Savolainen, Teemu Iivonen, Teemu Toikka, Joonas Nukarinen, Marko Penttinen, Sebastian Lindqvist, and Hannu Eetu-Paltta. I got to the end, and I just had to give up on the final one. So the top 9 drivers scoring points, and the 10th driver they can enter, they won't get any points for them. In terms of today, however, this is interesting. Florida do have themselves the lead, 629 points. Club Diaz is second with 607. Texas third, 109. Of course, no points being awarded to Iberia because none of their drivers were able to make this event. So 629 points for Club Florida. That is more than what Club Finland were able to do. But it is worth mentioning in there, Jonas, because of the fact that the oval side of this one. Actually, no, I'd say it's about the same because Asia didn't field any only fielded 2 drivers for the oval here. So one could argue that the extra points there for Florida compared to Finland was partially because of the fact that they had less competition. I think, you know, it will all balance itself out, really, when you put it into perspective. So I would call it a bona fide score for Florida. But Diach, we talked about Sasha Wessler, and it ended up biting them in terms of points here.
Permission to correct you, sir.
Go on, correct me.
Finland had about 140 points more than Florida on the oval side.
Yeah, you're right.
767
Yeah, so
points.
that's what I meant. It's because they've been doing it backwards for me. So yeah, Florida, Finland, obviously, that's the thing. Finland, which is so strong on the oval when they came to it, they were able to dominate. But Florida, it comes back to the point you were making a moment ago then. Florida needs to pull something out of the bag. And I think that when we get to the finals, it won't necessarily be the team who wins. I think you have to have a look at what Diaz did really well, getting drivers inside of your top 10. One of the things that a lot of these clubs forget so often is they forget about the fact that they forget about the last 2 or 3 drivers sometimes. They're almost the last people, people that just there to make up the numbers. You've got to have the depth from person number 1 all the way through to person number 10.
Yes, and that is indeed the case. You got to have the depth, and you have to make sure that each and every driver finishes the race, no matter what the result is, because there are always in a motor race going to be a couple of retirees from the race. And as a result, you just have to make it to the line no matter what happens. That is what in Finland we are being told all the time by club captain Joni Beckman. Now, what happened in the oval side is that everyone finished. So our lowest counting score was 71. To put that into the perspective, that was more than Scandinavia was able to get on their highest ranking driver, Carl E. Jönsson, on the oval side. So that is really the depth that counts, and running as a team that counts as well. So if you want to tip everybody else, if Florida wants a tip, if they want to pull a cat out of their bag, so to speak, and they do have Panthers in Florida, at least the hockey team. So they are going to need to work on their team spirit as they go to the road side, if they make it to the road finals. And as for DH, they are going to be a really ferocious opponent on the road side. So, what I'm expecting is a race for the H's in Imola at about 56 minutes time, 55 minutes time now. And I do believe that we have some guests in our booth for an interview, no?
Yeah, Ryan Lockwood from Club Florida is here. And well, Lockwood was able to come home 3rd in terms of the event here today. So, not a bad showing for Lockwood. But Brian, thanks for joining us here on Racesport TV. The key thing that stood out to me was just how badly balanced that race car of yours was about 10-15 laps into that first run.
I don't have very much experience with ovals, so I have to thank my team, Club Florida, for helping me learn very quickly. I think part of the issue, the biggest issue, because Joe and I were running the same setup, so I believe the issue was just me pushing the tires too hard, not having the experience to know how and when to back off. But it turned out, a 3rd place is a great finish. I can't complain.
Yeah, and overall your event, being able to get 3rd and having your teammate win the race and with the points lead at the moment, does that inspire you for confidence in terms of potentially being able to beat Diach in terms of the overall points here?
Oh, absolutely. I was expecting us to be a little bit behind after the oval race, so learning that we're ahead is wonderful news. I'm very confident in our car's setup and our drivers going into the road race. So I'm very excited. I'm very much looking forward to it.
So before we let you go, we'll give you a chance. You give yourself the chance to give a quick shout out to your friends, your sponsors, and some motivational messages to your team as they head themselves to the road race at Imola.
Yeah, well, thank you to Club Florida, Derek Spears Designs, who's sponsoring us for this event. Let's do this. Let's win.
Nice and simple there. Brian Lockwood coming home 3rd place in this event today. Well, the difficult thing is, Jake, we've got a long time to talk now before the road race because none of these guys decided to crash into each other.
Yeah, they certainly didn't, and well, now we got ourselves about 53 minutes before we get ourselves back into qualifying again. It's a very long time for those drivers who now have themselves in that position where they're looking at what's just happened on the roadside. You know, for some teams, there comes in with confidence. For some teams, there was a few problems, a few hitches. I mean, you even look at Iberia, their management hasn't clearly worked for them, and they didn't manage to get anybody in to really race that oval side. I mean, Texas as well, they had their own troubles as well, only getting about 2-3 drivers to get themselves in. You know, it's completely a 1v1 game you look at between what is Florida and now DH. And with DH being behind, and you look at all the sort of class that DH have had over the years, which they've been looking at. You know, you look at the likes of Alexander Vosses, Patrick Pieschlers, you look at the likes of, say, Andreas Almensbergers, and all of those fantastic names they bring in. You know, who are they going to have available to them after their troubles they've had here today? You look at Florida, they seem to be the team that's most in tune because they're ahead and because they're filling out those categories. I think they're in a great position here, Will, and you can call it an upset. They might be the 5th seed, but DH not being there after being so synonymous, that could be a potential, and that could be something that really does see the horizons change in terms of DH.
Yeah, and in terms of the road race, Jonas, I've got a feeling that Iberia will be the difference maker. They'll be angry, they'll be wanting to get out there and race, and the key thing for them is they'll just be taking points away from Florida or DH or both. So this isn't necessarily a case of winning, it's again getting as many people into the top 10 as possible, not putting your foot wrong, and keeping it safe so all your drivers come home at the end.
Yes, Iberia is always dangerous on the roadside. They are very, 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 very fast, blindingly fast. Now, let's see what kind of team they can field on the roadside after not being able to participate on the oval side, of course. But I think they are going to be the black horse of this event, so to speak. They're going to be the black horse of this event, and we are going to see how DH and of course Florida can field off that challenge as well. We know Texas has some really fast road racing guys as well, so we'll see what they can do. I think it's going to be a 2-horse battle. Well, it's going to be a 2-horse battle, and they are going to be running almost neck on neck as they come to the final furlong. But I would say that there are possibilities for some upsets, and it's not going to be as straightforward as they thought now. Florida has a lead of about 20 points after the first event. They have a slim lead, but it's not much. They are going to, I think, have to extend themselves on the roadside. But yes, as you said, Iberia is going to be the difference maker here. What kind of team they can field, if they are going to field a team at all, and what they can do at a track like Imola. Now, it's not going to be an easy track by any means. Imola is treacherous with these GD1 cars, much more so than it is with other cars such as GD3. We saw some accidents in Group A race already. We saw some well-established drivers making mistakes in Group A race already, and I don't think Group B is going to make much of a difference. Now, what is going to make a big difference is that if one club can establish themselves at front early on. So qualifying is going to be crucial, and having, let's say, 3 or 4 DH drivers in the front of the field being able to run away from the rest of the field is going to bring out the victory. But if they are going to end up in a race-long struggle like they did in the Oval, then hey, anything's possible.
Indeed. Well, we're going to step aside for a quick moment. We're going to get ourselves ready for the road race. We'll come back with far much more analysis as well. We'll talk about what's to come later on today in Group C and Group D. Who's going to have the toughest path to the World Cup of iRacing final? We'll be back in just a few moments' time.
Simulated racing can be awesome, but can also be kind of a free-for-all. Interestingly, auto racing faced the same problem in its earlier days. Whether it was on the back roads, the beaches, or the city streets, the racing was fun. But there was always a certain level of chaos and danger, until some folks came along and put some order to all of this. Stuff like official racetracks, regulations about weight and equipment, and enforcement of standards. That's what gave us high-speed excitement, fast-paced action, and photo finishes. That's when racing became racing. The guys over at iRacing.com have made the same transformation in the world of sim racing. Sure, they've got the most accurate tracks and realistic cars out there, but that's just the start. See, iRacing analyzes the performance and results of each driver in every race, so you can be sure you're always placed in races where the competition will be tight, and that those reckless drivers who ruin it for us all are kept in the pits. Not to mention that with over 45,000 active members already in their vast community, you can find races day and night, so you can always get in on the action. You can even join a league of your favorite series. And since updates are always automatic, you don't have to worry about software and can focus on the track. Zip up your fire suit and check out iRacing.com.
About halfway through the World Cup of iRacing Group B competition. We've still got plenty of racing to come though throughout the rest of today. Later on, Club UK and Ireland will take on Club Central Eastern Europe, Benelux and Canada looking to return to the World Cup of iRacing's final. They were ranked second coming into this event. And finally, later on today, we'll have ourselves Northwest versus New York versus Brazil versus California. In terms of Group D, both Group C and Group D will be seen live on the Global Sim Racing channel, and it will be streaming live also on iRacing Live. Here's the thing worth noting. Northwest pulled third in terms of the qualifying stages units. Do not discount Northwest. They could well really upset the Brazilian team and find a way to get themselves into the final.
Indeed so. I wouldn't count Northwest out at all. In fact, in my books, Northwest is going to make it out of Group D. That's what I'm expecting. California's always tough, New York is tough, Brazil, we know their prestige on the roadside. They also have some very good oval drivers as well. But I'm expecting Northwest to make it out of Group D. Now, as for Group C, if I can return to that briefly, I think UK and Ireland. And I realize that I'm in a broadcast booth with two British people, but I'm going to go on a bold prediction here about Group C. I'm going to say Canada makes it to the finals.
Wow. They're ranked 7th coming in from qualifying here. They had a pretty respectable score in both road and oval. Worth quickly noting that Brazil did not participate in the road side, so their scores that we have for them only represent their oval score, which is why they were ranked 11th. Well, for UK and Ireland, for me, Jonas, more than anything, is they have to keep it safe. They need to understand that there are some fantastic drivers around them, and there are some people wanting to make a statement. And I think there are some people who would rather just go for the race win and get them their club some valuable points. And if you're Club UK and Ireland, you're the established club in that group, I've got a feeling what you've got to do is you just simply got to make sure you get your guys through. You don't worry about necessarily winning the race. You don't worry about giving up positions. But you make sure that you guys always remember the fact that you can't undamage a race car.
That is very true. You can repair a race car, but it is going to take a long time on the pit road, and extra time is something that you necessarily don't have in motor racing, as we know. And UK and Ireland, it is worth noting that it was the fastest club last year in the finals with the IndyCar at Suzuka. I think UK were actually the fastest club on the roadside. It was not Finland, it was not DH, it was UK and Ireland that gave the toughest challenge. Now we know what happened in turn 1 there. Let's not go back there. Let's not go back there because it is going to set up some PTSD for some people now. But I still say that Canada can really pull off the upset. They have a really good group of people, and I'm looking at their sheer participation numbers that Canada has. They have the biggest depth in terms of numbers out of anyone. They have, when I looked last time, they had more drivers sign up than anyone else. Now, if Canada can use that depth, if they can pick a group of guys, a group of 10 guys that can really bring home the final result, I think they could pull off the upset. I'm not saying it's the obvious result. I think it's going to be a really tough race for those clubs at Group C. But I think Canada has the potential. That's why I'm putting them as my bet for the final. And also for Group B, as for the Group B that is going to come right now, let's talk about more that later on. But I think DH is going to make it, but it's not going to be easy. So my final lineup, and you can write this down. I'm not confident on it, but you can still write this down. Finland already made it. They are going to be up against DH, Canada and Northwest in the finals, which could be quite interesting. Let's remember that there are 4 clubs from that group that were also in the finals last year, so it's going to be just UK and Ireland not making it. But I think Canada being only seed number 7 is really going to upset things. What I would really want is Canada up against Northwest New York and California perhaps, or Northwest Brazil and New York in that Group D. That could be really interesting.
That would have been fantastic. And it's worth noting as well, there's no wild card transfer this year. You win your group or you go home, Jake. And that means that for DH, there is no second chances if they get it wrong today.
No, there isn't, and they really can't afford it. And, well, it's close. You have to say it certainly is close, and it could have been a lot more difficult for the likes of, say, Florida had there not have been more Texas drivers or more Iberia drivers. So you have to say Florida have had a little bit of luck to get themselves into it. DH have as well. They haven't been all dominant in the oval side, and I don't think many people are expecting them to see have a top 5 lockout, say, of what was the oval side. You have to be incredibly careful looking at the situation that DH have. They've got to go to the roadside, and you have to say they have a very big pedigree when it comes to the roadside at Imola. They've got some very established names, and there are certainly going to be a lot of people who are going to be trying to push themselves in. Now, you also look at the other 2 groups as well. I think Junis has had hits say it's time for my say as well. I actually do agree with him in the fact that UK and Ireland are going to be struggling, and that you can't discount the other 2 teams as well. They do have some very key players looking at that. Canada are very understated, but they certainly have their way through. Club Benelux, how many times do we see some very, very talented Belgian drivers, talented Dutch drivers there, who all really put themselves up to the forefront of the iRacing service? And you even look at Russia, who don't really have too many big names, but we saw with the Curb Surfers, an entirely Russian team in the Blancpain series, we saw exactly what they could do in that sense. So UK and Ireland, they're certainly not going to have their own way of that. And they're missing some key characters as well. Talking to Matt Dalton, team captain, you have to say there's a lot of problems for UK and Ireland when they move forward. They could lose themselves. Now, Group D, that's also interesting as well, Will. You look at Brazil, who have that talent that is there often on offer, and they can certainly say that they're placing against 3 American teams, which, if you look at it from the outsiders looking in, you'd say that the American teams don't really have it. Northwest, though, they've got a bigger base. They can certainly prove something. New York, they can certainly prove something as well. California, interesting to see what they do as well. I think Brazil are going to take it ahead of Northwest. I'm not going to say that's going to be easy either, but, you know, GSRC, they've got 2 classics on their hands.
I would say, for Club UK and Ireland and Brazil, they're actually UK and Ireland more, to be fair. There's something else going on right now. That is the Pro Series of Road Racing, which you can see, by the way, streaming live now on iRacing Live. And Jonas, for the guys running in the Pro Series, these are the people that Club UK and Ireland, and to an extent people at Club Brazil, will be begging to have in their team right now. But when you compare a one-off event that takes place once a year, compare that to the chance to run in the iRacing World Championship Grand Prix Series, I'm not going to lie to you, I know where I'd rather be if I was the driver that had themselves an opportunity to run in one of the biggest series in sim racing. That, I think, is the issue. If the Club UK and Ireland can pull themselves through today, they can rely potentially on a bit of that talent next week. But I don't think that they can rely on it today, and I don't think you're going to have many drivers wishing to do double duty.
No, not at all. The iRacing Pro Series, the Road Pro Series is gonna take so much determination, so much practice. It takes weeks and weeks, months of practice, setup fiddling. You can't just jump in from the McLaren MP4/30, MP4-30 and jump into a GD1 car, Chevrolet Corvette, or into the oval car. You can't do that. You have to concentrate fully on what you are going to do, and that is the Road Pro Series for those guys. Now, next week, in the finals, if they make it to the finals, UK is going to have a lot of reserve as well. I think Benelux could have a lot of reserve as well. I think for Benelux the problem is participation numbers, sheer participation numbers, because I think if they had better participation, they will be absolutely a shoe-in in that Group C for the final spot as well. But touching to your point earlier on about making choices, whether you're running in the World Cup or you're running in qualifier series, we had that situation last year in Finland, where we had many drivers who were penciled in to participate on the World Cup finals. I know I was being one of them, and I ended up participating as well. And at the same time, there was the Blancpain GD series qualifier series that took a lot of effort out of us. So you're going to have to split the duty. You are going to have to run multiple series. You're going to have to do something for your club, do something for yourself. And I think I'm going to pull out a soccer reference here, actually, a football reference, as I should say, because I'm with 2 Britons here. So I'm going to call it football from now on.
You know
anyway,
that I don't watch much of that stuff, so you can just call it whatever you want.
Okay, well, thank you. I'm not going to go for the hockey references because nobody's going to understand them apart from me. Anyway, it's a case of whether you want to play for your club, or your national team. It's the same thing. Our racing clubs are kind of like national teams, and then you have your own independent competition for teams such as Team Redline or Coanda or Inex Racing. And there are a lot of interesting names that could have participated today in the group stage of World Cup, but they elected to participate in the qualifier road series. I know Alexi Eloma is one of those for the Finns as well. We ended up, well, not needing him, to put it bluntly, but I think he is going to be a shoe-in for the finals as well. He is very good on both road and oval, as we have established earlier on, so he is a big loss for us. And there are a lot of those guys for other clubs as well that are right now racing the Formula 1 car, the MP430, in the roadside, that could be participating here and could be interesting to see in here as well.
The key question after this one will be, I think, if the likes of a Diach doesn't get through here today, or UK and Ireland doesn't get through, they will be asking the question, would it be better to have a wild card? And well, that's one of the things, Jake. In years gone by, it has allowed the likes of a Club Northwest to get into this event. Australia, New Zealand, it's arguably the only way they can get through because of timing is always a big situation for that club. They have polled 5th overall so many times, 6th overall. They've had their hearts broken in the past. Is it better, do you think, to have no wild card or a wild card? And I feel like I'm going to mention a football reference. I'm mentioning a college football playoff reference right now. Is 4 teams enough, or should we do 8? That's what they're saying all over college football landscape. Is it a 14 playoff or an 18 playoff? What do you think the best model would be? Does it make it more satisfying to get through? Does it make it more personal right now? Or do you think the wild card is something that we could consider again?
Well, first of all, I'll say that you don't watch football. I believe you were in Amsterdam on Thursday watching the Europa League.
Yeah,
Yeah, but, looking at this situation, the way I would have structured it would be completely different to the wildcard situation. I would have done it group stages, semi-finals, and then finals. Have those 2 groups of 4, which then lead into 2 groups of 2 again, which come into the final. Now, you look at the situation that's going on right now, and you look at how certain teams with some massive talent can really struggle in terms of everyone looking in. There's going to be a lot of names or a lot of clubs which have that big pedigree and are known to be big time clubs, but let themselves down in a series like this and don't do themselves any favors. I think putting this as one of the big pinnacles of the club, you look at it and you think, is it in everyone's interest to try and run this? I don't think. If you look at the prestige that this World Cup has compared to, say, the iRacing World Championship, I definitely don't think it has that same sort of prestige. I don't think everyone has that same incentive to go and race for their country instead of racing for their own individual team. So looking at it from this way, there are going to be teams that are struggling. The UK and Ireland are certainly going to struggle. Diach, if they don't get in, it's going to be one of those big shocks. How have Diach not managed to get themselves in? And, you look at this situation, you think, is it going to be worth having a wildcard? In my opinion, no. I think it's down to those clubs to field the best teams that they possibly can. If they don't have those drivers available to them, then that is down to their fault and their fault alone. Granted, there is going to be these series cropping up here and there, and they have to work around it, and that's the only thing you have to do when you have yourself an iRacing run event compared to the World Cup, which isn't necessarily the iRacing run event. It is more run to be individuals running into it. So you look at this situation, are people going to be wanting to run this? Honestly, no. And that's the problem we have. I think it should stay at 4 at the moment. If not, go to semi-finals and finals.
In terms of some of the other events that have been taking place in the World Cup of iRacing, this has been the biggest World Cup of iRacing ever. And it's not only this event that's been taking place. We've had ourselves the Armageddon Demo Derby. We've had ourselves the Ring of Fire that's been taking place as well. Well, here's an interesting one. The International Club, Club International, have actually had the fastest time in the Ring of Fire so far, Eunice, followed by Asia. So, even though Asia only were able to field 2 drivers in one element of their World Cup campaign, which is on the oval side, some of the smaller clubs like Asia, like International Club, they are giving themselves some proper good respect to their club and their teams by being able to be up top in the Ring of Fire event.
Yeah, here at Finland we try not to be too greedy and take everything. No, but in all seriousness, it is so good for them, and I think it's good that clubs like International and Asian that don't necessarily have so much representation in the World Cup, they don't have so many drivers that could participate in the World Cup or are participating in the World Cup. I think it is very great that they are doing at least their share in some of the other events. Perhaps they are teams that will not be seen in the finals. We know that we won't see International in the finals. We know that we won't be seeing Club Asia in the finals. But I think it's a key thing and a crucial thing to have them at least represent their club in the best way possible in the World Cup of iRacing, because that's what it is all about. And I think ultimately, and I'm going to touch on the issue that Jake mentioned as well, the lack of participation, the lack of prestige. I think what helps Finland, aside from our tight community that has been mentioned multiple times, and this is going to be a touchy subject, I know, is that we are Club Finland instead of, say, Club Nordic. That is going to help a lot because we are racing under a single flag, and I know that for some other clubs that could perhaps be a case of lack of national pride when you have to compete alongside another nation. It's not the same thing. You're not racing under a united banner of a flag, united banner of an anthem like we are. And I think that is something that the Brazilians going to have an advantage on as well. But not everyone puts as much value to the World Cup of iRacing as we do in here. I know Diaz is going to try to field a strong team, and I hope that more teams and more clubs are going to field strong teams as well, and I think there is going to be some incentive that is required so that people are going to participate. Now, there are people actually in charge, like Michael Led, on improving. He's done great work already on improving the spectacle of World Cup of iRacing. And I used off a lot of times in that sentence, and I am perfectly aware of that fact. But would it be, in your opinion, Will, and also in your opinion, Jake, better if World Cup of iRacing was strictly nations instead of clubs?
Yes and no. I think you end up in a situation where one of the things that people keep on talking about is the size of clubs. And again, I know the argument to that is very simple. Finland's got one of the smallest clubs in iRacing. But at the same time, what it does do is it makes it easy to organise under the current system. You know, I can mention back when I joined iRacing, we used to have Club England and then Club Celtic, which was essentially Wales, Scotland, and Ireland. But making it Club UK and Ireland, I think, has made it easier for them to organise a group and a team for what that doesn't just have numbers, but has quality of numbers. I think that, you know, some clubs will continue to be fine. But what, would you just have one Club America, which takes on all of the United States? Like, would you have a Team USA and a Team Canada? Because, I mean, at that point, you end up with such a difficult situation of trying to get a huge, and I mean absolutely huge user base down to just 10 drivers. I mean, how would you determine that one?
Well, I think we could finally have some challenge for Finland. No, but well.
So here's
club.
this is a situation that will be then come the oval side. It's let's just pick out the top 10 of the NASCAR Peak Anti-Free series, and we'll just put them in a race.
Well, what they could, yes, they could pick top 10, or they could have qualifiers, like we do. We run a qualifier system, and then club captain picks. And strong captaincy is, by the way, one thing that is also required. But here's the thing: Club USA or Team USA is the problem and the strongest argument, I think, against national-based system, aside from the difficulties. Now, how are you going to determine a driver's nationality? Because we have cases of drivers whose location is not certainly their home country. We know the case of Riku Alatalo, who is from Singapore, still shows up as Singapore. We know Teemu Iivonen shows up in Sweden. There is also actually a Finnish driver in Club Scandinavia who is driving under Club Scandinavia, who is Finnish but has lived 10 years in Sweden as well. I know there is one case like that, and there are multiple other cases as well where a driver's location is not necessarily his nationality. Now, would the captain or would the driver have to send a sign-up form for his participate for his nation, or would it be determined automatically? I think the former would be the better option. But I would also say that perhaps it could bring some more drivers to participate if they could, say, participate for England, which I know is not an independent nation, but still participate for England, or say some more German drivers if they could participate for Germany. And what could be some of the new nations that could form out of that way? We could see countries like Netherlands, like Belgium, competing independently and perhaps having more participation. Teams like Russia competing independently and thus having more participation. There are multiple, like Spain, for example. Spain versus Portugal could be an interesting case. But as you said, Will, it is a difficult subject, and I think it's a good conversation that could be had, not only as a time filler, because we still have 20 minutes to the start, of course, but also as a point that could be made. And I think I've been toying with the idea myself for some time, and it has good arguments for and against, but I would also like to hear your and Jake's opinion on that subject as well.
Wait, does that mean we give Jake an opinion on RaceBot?
Whoa,
Whoa,
wow.
whoa.
Yeah, anyway, I'll step in now because I haven't said anything in about a good 10 minutes here. The way I'd view it is, if you were going to put yourself in a situation where you put it in forms of nations instead of the clubs that we have right now, you are going to see certain clubs disintegrate, you're going to see certain clubs have to unite together, and not always are you going to see clubs have themselves, you know, the same identity as they have if things are right now. You're going to see, I mean, you look at Club International as a whole, that's got about however many countries in it, which all have themselves together, and albeit that is quite small, you break that apart and say it's individual countries. Club International, they have absolutely nothing. We're not going to see the likes of them come and get themselves together into this series for a very long time. But what it would do, it would breathe new life into a situation, I believe, I've seen quite a bit come out of Indonesia or Singapore. I've seen those sort of countries come together. You'd see Japan come and make itself a key force. I mean, you look at the likes of Kazuki Umeshima, Shinya Mishimi, those sort of drivers could then bring themselves to the fold in that sort of respect. But again, you also lose countries in the shuffle. If you broke up, say, the United Kingdom into something completely different, you lose all the Irish side of drivers, you lose Scotland, you lose Wales, you lose Northern Ireland, you lose so much from certain countries that come in. And in terms of citizenship as well, in my opinion, what I would say is, if you've lived 4 years in another country, for example, you gain citizenship in another country, you have the option to run for that country or not. It's a very simple
like
case.
voting rights.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we're in a situation where, you know, there is potential to change, but at the moment, if it isn't broke, why would you fix it?
And yeah, well, I do have to continue by saying, you know, the way the World Cup has been run the last couple of years, Mike, Katie, the entire gang that's been involved in kind of bringing something back, which was in many ways, shape and form, you know, disregarded for a year. It's been fantastic, and I'm trying to remember, 13, 14, 15, 16, this is my 4th year commentating on the World Cup of iRacing. It would have been 5, but, you know, I wasn't doing anything back 5 years ago. But I think the key thing, Jonas, with all the other events that we've been talking about, you know, I think it adds something to it where it allows smaller clubs, smaller teams to get into it more and have more fun. I mean, for example, you've got the fun of the Armageddon, which, again, Finland have decided to be greedy, and they've qualified for the finals with Florida, Northwest, Canada, Michigan, Club UK and Ireland. Now that's going to be fun. Can you just make sure you take all the frustrations, all your clubs, take all your frustrations out in the Armageddon Demo Derby. Get it out of the way before we get ourselves through to the actual finals.
Well, I should mention in the Armageddon that I was actually participating in that race as well. No, I'm not going to brag, but I actually happened to win that as well. Oops. Well, anyway, coming to your serious point, we had fun in the Armageddon. I think it is down to Jere Seppälä, who is actually in the board of running the World Cup of iRacing, who brought the club together. Beckman is in charge of the more competitive side. Now, the group stage, the qualifier stage, as well as the finals. And then Jere Seppälä has been doing an amazing job in bringing us to participate in some of the perhaps not so serious events, the alongside events, the so-called not main events. And that is more for the fun side, but of course we are representing our club as well. We are representing Finland, and you made a good point in that these smaller events, I'm calling them smaller events for now because they're not part of the main event, but they are still part of the World Cup of iRacing. I think support events could be a proper term to be used for those. So, support events. I think they could bring a lot of club spirit together. And club spirit is an important thing, you know. Having club meetups, having club that communicates on various forms like TeamSpeak or Mumble or even Discord these days, iRacing. It's a key thing to bringing a club together, and it's such a shame to see, in my opinion, such a shame that it is not something that happens more around the world. Now, could it be improved by having more of a national system, having some national pride in it or not? That is up to the question. And it was a good point not fixing a system that isn't broken. It's not broken, but could it bring new life into it? Absolutely. And some of the Club International, as was touched on, some Singaporean drivers, for example, who are right now part of Club International, could they, for example, come and be perhaps not a dominant force, perhaps not even a strong force, but in the coming years, could they establish a foundation of Singaporean sim racers that are going to recruit new drivers, kind of like Finland does? We have an official association called the Finnish Sim Racing Association here. We organize events on a large scale, and that is something that needs to be seen around the world as well to accelerate the growth of sim racing as a whole. And I think that is the key. World Cup could be a flagship event where you see people racing. Just imagine the scene, a live LAN final, a live final with drivers approaching to the live final under the banner of their country, with national anthems playing and competing with flags on the stands, kind of like you have in the world of esports as a whole. Flags in the stands, people supporting their country, and drivers drivers racing under the unified banner. For example, we hear the Finnish Maamme national anthem playing briefly in the background, thanks to Will Winston chiming in and playing that on the background. And it's an amazing moment. And when you raise the World Cup of iRacing trophy over your hands and it's filled with champagne and take it to sauna with people and drink out of it, and you
This
take
is
it
a
to
true
sauna.
story, by the way. This is a true story. They did literally fill a trophy up with champagne and take it to the sauna.
Yes, that's a tradition in Finland. And what could the Germans do? Do they fill it with beer? Do they put some bratwurst in it? I don't know. What could the Germans do? What could the Americans do with the World Cup trophy? Could they get together and raise the trophy over their heads, hand it in a live event after a tough struggle? That is the one chance, not the only chance, but the one good chance of making iRacing and sim racing as a whole a really big live event, because I think it has all the potential in the world, Will.
It's okay. If the Club UK Ireland do win the World Cup, basically what will happen is we'll form a queue to go and have our photo taken next to the trophy, because that's about as much as we'll get done from that one. We're going to continue in just a few moments' time here, ladies and gentlemen, on Racebot TV and on iRacing Live. Just going to do some back of house stuff very quickly. We'll be back with more after these messages. Welcome to Imola, home of the road portion of the 2016 World Cup of iRacing Group B Showdown. It's Florida who currently lead the way from Club Diat, and it's going to be tight all the way through to the last lap of racing. It's not about just winning, it's about getting 9 drivers as high up as you possibly can, get the point, and give yourselves the opportunity to say that I and my team are going to the finals. There's a long way to go. A really long way to go. And you will see every second of that here on RaceSpot TV, streaming live on iRacing Live. Wilvinson along with Jake Sperry and Jonas Usampurka. 50 minutes this time around. And we are going to go and have a chat with Jake Sperry in just one moment's time. Jake, track conditions here are interesting. 80 degrees Fahrenheit, 54% humidity, 14 km/h winds here at Imola.
Yeah, this is going to be a really difficult, especially those winds. They are high, they are swirling, and it's going to really affect the balance of these cars. Everyone has to make sure that they get that setup right to the T. And with these track conditions, moderately cold, you could say, it is going to be one of these difficult ones in the late afternoon where everyone is going to be a little bit slippy and slidey in these opening laps. They've got themselves 50 minutes to work with. But as we all know, Imola is an incredibly difficult circuit to really make the overtake with. So when you're looking at a situation like this, if you're there qualifying up at the front, you have all of the chance to take home the spoils.
Jonas Usampurka is still with us as well. And Jonas, survival is not the right way of saying it in some ways, but making sure that you get your guys to the finish is important. If they finish, start totaling up the points. You can't have people crashed out of the event.
If they're finished, they don't have to worry about that. But yes.
Yay! Well,
Yay!
thank you for that.
Lame puns galore.
As we finish.
Yes. Anyway, I absolutely agree with you. Especially in Imola, where it's an easy task to make an incredibly humiliating mistake. There are so many corners that with GD1 cars are incredibly difficult. Agua Minerale is one of those, one of the most legendary corners, in my opinion, in motorsports, because it's such a difficult one. Then you run up the hill into Variante Alta, and that exit curb on the inside, you have to cut the curbs. The car is bouncing around, and the thing is with those GD1 cars, yes, you do have traction control, but it doesn't always save you, and then you come down the hill, long braking zone, no ABS, into the last 2 corners, the Rivazza 1 and 2, and then into the main straight. A good exit is crucial. And one thing that many people perhaps don't know about Imola, or should be pointed out, is that you can take some of the curb, but as soon as you touch those black curbs, those high curbs that are on the inside of the main curbing, then it's going to be a very difficult race from there on out. Imola, the track surface, I think, is quite loose, quite slippery. Once you come up to Tosa, for example, the exit is really difficult, and it can really put a wrench into things. And as for overtaking here, it can be done. I think the best way still to overtake in Imola is to get a good run out of Tosa and to get the overtake done on the inside coming onto Piratella. It's not easy, it's not exactly the safest option, but I think it's the best option. A good exit is the best way to overtake here. You don't wanna necessarily get into that late braking contest coming into Tamburello, the Tamburello chicane, because that might not necessarily end well, and also avoiding other people's mistakes, because the visibility here, it's really low. You can't really see if someone makes a mistake due to the undulation, the track that goes up and down. Avoiding spinning cars when other people make a mistake and keeping your car intact is going to be a key. Whether it's going to be Florida or DH or some other club that manages that the best is going to determine who are we going to face in the finals.
Point that Jonas just made about the curbs. We'll try and show you this one. You can see there's a low curb, and Imola used to be one of those tracks where you used to abuse the curbs. Famously, Jenson Button in his first couple of seasons in Formula 1 just couldn't get used to it at all. We go back on board, but what they've done, Jake, is the first part of the curb is still fine. They're low curbs here, so you can abuse them. But those little studs that go across the slightly more elongated part of the curb off the racetrack, they're the bits you definitely want to avoid. You're into almost a circuit of an American-like syndrome once you're into that situation.
Yeah, certainly, and there's certainly a deterrent to say, you know, we don't want you cutting these, we're going to start damaging your suspension or things like that. But when you do see these cars up and over the curbs, you certainly do have to slow down to save the car, and that is certainly going to be something that you are going to see drivers trying to really maximize the car and take that risk versus reward strategy. Now, actually, something quite interesting to note here, Will, going into this race, as things stand with 3 minutes of practice to go, there are only 2 Iberia drivers and there are no Texas drivers. So in terms of trying to disrupt the flow, Florida have to do it on their own accord, DH have to do it on their own accord. They're not going to get too much help.
Live timing and scoring will be available. Visit racebot.tv/timing throughout this event. If you want to get social with us, you can do so. /RacebotTV @RacebotTV on Twitter if you want to be a part of our broadcast here today. Want to give a shout out to a couple of people. First of all, to Antoine Design, the official graphics partner of Racebot TV, as well as to Isman Balal's track cams for gourmets. You can download those now from the iRacing forums. Finally, also to this fantastic overlay that you can see right now. It's been brought to you by the App Engineer TV overlay, ATVO. You can download it now from the iRacing forums, just not our broadcast overlay. Sorry, that's protected. In terms of where we are right now, 2 minutes until qualifying, Jake.
Yeah, 2 minutes to qualifying. You're going to see these drivers now just starting to get their final lap sorted, maybe practice their starts down on the straight, but they have to make sure that they just have everything sorted. DH and Florida, they both have their full quota of 10 drivers they can put into this event, so they are going to be scoring some points. It's going to be a straight out-and-out battle, but you are going to see here, this DH team, it is pretty much a second-rate DH team, you could certainly argue. There isn't really those big names that you normally see racing at the top of, say, Blancpain, racing at the top of, say, the iRacing World Championship. They don't really have that. And you look at Florida, they've already been in here before. About half of their team has pretty much transferred over from that Oval Series here, Will. So you have to say, Florida already have their eye in. DH pretty much have what has got to be a reserve team in force.
Yeah, and let's go back to what we were talking about earlier. DH have to win out here. They need to win out, and I'm starting to wonder, Jonas, can Florida do it? I think they can. Florida, I think. Qualifying will show us quite a lot here, but if Florida can get 5 drivers inside the top 10, Florida can win this.
Absolutely, absolutely indeed, and that is the key thing. Now, I'm looking at the practice times right now, and let's remind you that the second-rate DH team is still not a bad DH team. There are going to be some really good road drivers, and I think a lot of these people participating for Club DH, racing for Club DH, are mainly road guys anyway. So I think their issue usually is on the oval side in terms of getting points. But, and here's the but, Imola is not an easy track at all, and there can be mistakes made. Now, if there's a mistake right at the start, and if the qualifying is going to go as the practice is going, and we're seeing basically a lockout of DH drivers in the front, aside from Brian Lockwood, who is 4th at the practice times at the moment as it stands, as the practice ends, then, well, there's a lot of things that can happen. I still think DH can eke it out, but it's not going to be as cut and slice as it might be, usually.
Indeed. Qualifying is more is up. It started right now. Qualifying here, well, we've got 15 minutes on the play clock. These guys are out to do qualifying laps as we speak. We're going to head on board immediately with the first driver we see, and that one is going to be the driver of Pappenbrock. He's going to be a big factor in this DH team, Jake.
Yeah, he certainly is. He's got to make sure that everything's sorted right now, and you can already see the track itself is going to be one of those things. Into the Villeneuve chicane, he's going to come along on his opening little get-go, left then right, slower you go as you then head to a very difficult corner in Tosa, understated because you head left and then you head up the hill when you try and get back on the power. It's so easy just to spin that car around, and then, of course, you've got that small kink right into the 90-degree Piratella. I'm just surprised at how tight that corner is when you go in. You expect to take it a lot quicker than you do, and in the end, you're being a lot slower, and you're all over the AstroTurf.
Yeah, Fabian Drumbluff also represents that team, as well as Nicolas Lubic. You got Florida has got Douglas Duchette on track right now. Again, Marty Vrana, we saw him running that very weird strategy, the one-stopper Jonas, and what that shows me is this is a guy that can handle a loosey-goosey race car, expect him to try and make up some positions at the start of this event.
Yes, indeed, but I'm thinking the kind of first impression, I haven't seen Marty Vrana much on the racetrack myself. I haven't raced much against him. The kind of impression I got from him is that he is the kind of guy who will bring the race car to home in a good position usually as well. He might not be challenging for the win of the race in terms of brute raw pace, but he is the kind of guy who will bring the race car home, and you need that kind of an insurance on your team. And Marty Vrana, I think, is the perfect fit for Team Florida in this event. Now he can let other guys like Brian Lockwood take care of disrupting DH's flow and DH's race, and he himself just avoids accidents and brings the car home in a good finishing position. I'm expecting Marty to perhaps pull out a top 10 even once again and be a key part in Florida's charge to defeat DH and make it to the finals.
Right, qualifying times, we'll see them up on your screen momentarily as drivers will start to do some laps. As we say, we've got 15 minutes worth of qualifying here in total for these guys to go as fast as they possibly can. Let's ride on board with Daniel Kurtz for Club DH for a few moments. Or not. Okay. So this portion of the racetrack we're on right now, this is the Villeneuve chicane leading into Tosa. Tosa, the slowest corner on the racetrack. You can try and make a pass here, Jonas, but because it's such a short run from Villeneuve into Tosa, you're relying on the guy ahead of you to make a mistake.
Yes, but the mistake is very easy to do in Villeneuve chicane. We touched about it earlier on. Villeneuve tightens as you come to the end of the chicane. The second part is really, really tight and you come really hot at the first part. Now the best chance is to try to disrupt the guy into the first part of the chicane. Show your nose a little bit exiting Tamburello on that run down towards Villeneuve. Then disrupt his line, try to get alongside after the second part on the exit, and then you pick a line into Tosa, whether you want to do it on the inside or outside. Both ways are possible. If you do it on the inside, you have to make sure that you get past the guy before the exit. If you do it on the outside, if you try for the crossover, which would be my preferred choice, then you have much more options, because you don't have to get into a late braking contest, potentially with dangerous consequences coming into Tosa. Instead, you can just brake early, brake nice and early, cut to the inside, get that good exit, and getting power down at Tosa is not easy by any means, and then cut to the inside, coming towards Piratella. And that is the way I think these drivers, as well as myself if I would be participating, could have the best chance of overtaking at Imola. The other place where you can possibly see an overtake is that long main straight if you get a good exit out of Rivazza. Those are the two main passing points. Now there is always that one guy who tries that late break up the inside move towards Variante Alta, but you see, I don't think you can fit two GD1 cars through there, not at racing speed.
Not at racing speed. At pacing speed maybe, but not at full racing speed. There's Marcus Pappenbrock riding on board of him right now in towards Rivazza 1. Into Rivazza 2. It's worth noting that this section of the track was reprofiled. There used to be a final chicane there. I used to love it. And it no longer exists. It's now flat out all the way down towards Tamburello chicane, Jake.
Yeah, the Variante Batta, pretty much no more. They've changed it a little bit, but now you don't see where they fling it all the way to the right. They've now reprofiled that to put in that pit lane and that 1 kilometer straight down into Tamburello. Pappenbrock right now is currently P number 6 as things stand. And as things stand at the moment, 4 drivers out of the top 5 are DH drivers right now. So you see a few drivers struggling then from Florida. They're not getting the qualifying that they're in. Brian Lockwood is yet to set a lap time, and I don't believe he is out on circuit as things stand at number 1. No, he's not. So you look at this right now from a perspective, Brian Lockwood's going to put himself with a lot of pressure here to do qualifying late on in the run to try and get his lap times to sort out.
We have an Iberia driver, Jarovea, on board right now with their driver. Iberia, as I said, what they're not going to qualify at this stage. We can make that one simple, Jake, but what they can do is A, they can show some team pride, and B, they can take points away from DH in Florida. And the case will be who will have the least taken away out of those two teams. Of course, so at the time of us talking earlier, there's only 2 Iberia drivers in this event, so it's not as big as we were potentially expecting. And I'm also having a look at some of the lap times here. P6, 5, 6, 7 are so close. You've got Nicolas Puget right now, and then Fabian Jungblef and Dragon Nick, as we've just seen a change for pole position.
Yes, we have, and that's Tobias Soltau then, who's got himself up onto that top 138, 1/2 clear of the rest of the field, and that certainly shows a level of consistency that we haven't really seen from anywhere else. You look at where Florida are, they're not there. They are looking close, but I think at the moment, the earliest driver of the Florida guys is 9th as things stand with Douglas Beard. Yeah, it's not good enough at the moment, and I think after all that they did and how they took it to Diach in the Oval, I think they're failing in the road, and they're going to be so reliant on Brian Lockwood that they don't have anyone else who's really at the moment done enough, as I've just seen Douglas Beard lose it at Villeneuve.
Yeah. For me, the way that Florida will do well in this race is through consistency. And Douglas Beard, of course, we've seen him so many times. You'll see him quite often on the Global Sim Racing channel. And, of course, Global Sim Racing channel will be your host for Group C and Group D later on today. Beard is an established driver, but he's running a GT1 car, which is in some ways different from what he often runs in. More power, more grunt, more drive in these cars. He's normally used to running in things like the Continental Endurance Sports Car Series, and, well, he's still got a good job with P number 9 right now, but you're right, Lockwood, nowhere to be seen right now. In fact, he's not even come out on track here, Jonas, and that, with 6 minutes to go, that's a message there to everyone else. Brian Lockwood, if he starts on pit road here, or worse, this is going to be horrific.
I think what Brian Lockwood is doing here right now is mind games. He wants to see, because you don't put your fastest time, you don't necessarily need all the 4 laps. You're going to put your fastest time either on first or second flying lap. I'm not quite sure on that one, but you are not going to need all 4 laps. Now, I think what Brian is doing, he's taking his time, adjusting his qualifying setup, or perhaps he has an issue that makes him not participate in the qualifying. But either way, I think it's either Brian Lockwood wants to wait and see what the other guys are putting on board, as he has just left the pit lane, in fact, on his out lap, so let's see what he can do here. We still have 6 minutes left in the session, so I'm thinking 2 flying laps for Brian Lockwood, and let's see where he can put himself in. I'm expecting him, Brian Lockwood's name, right around Yarovia, Microchin, Dragan Nikic region, in P4 to 6. He could surprise us and even challenge for a top 3 starting position. But Brian Lockwood is the force that Florida has to rely on heavily. Brian Lockwood, and the fact that there might be some inter-club within club competition for Club Diaz for that win. Those are the chances Florida has right now. It's still a long race, it's a 50-minute race, so it's not going to come necessarily exactly down to qualifying, but it tells us the difference between the fastest drivers of Club Diaz and what Florida can put up against them.
At this stage, Florida, excuse me. At this stage for Florida, it might be a reliance on there being a tricky start. On the likes of Yarovaya causing issues, not, I'm not saying taking people out, I mean racing a DH hard. At the pace it is, with, as I can see, 8 DH drivers inside your top 10, they were hoping for a formation race here. We don't want to see a formation race, we want to see a real race. Maybe Florida haven't pushed too hard in terms of qualifying. Maybe they're looking to do it in terms of race pace. What we can do, though, is we're going to go on board. This is a lap with Brian Lockwood.
Oh,
Straight to the top of the timing stands. Boom, confetti, Jake.
oh, absolutely. And 4/10 clear as well. That's a statement and a half from Brian Lockwood. He is going to be the heart and soul of Florida here this afternoon, and he will solely try and hope that he holds on. He's going to need a bit of help from Vi, he's going to need a bit of help from his teammates, but overall, it's the one shining hope that Florida have to get rid of Diach. But Diach right now, they have a big stranglehold, and they're doing so well, especially with the problems they've had through the week.
You know what I'm thinking right now? Is that maybe Florida are pinning their hopes here, Jonas, on Lockwood getting pole and Diach getting frustrated behind him.
I don't think that might be necessarily the case. It might not be the plan going in, at least. You can never bank on someone getting the pole because that is always unsure, as Brian Lockwood makes a little bit of a mistake exiting Akuma in a rally. We talked about this earlier on. We touched on it briefly. I don't think he can improve on his second and third laps, even though this second lap was looking good early on, but I don't think it's going to be faster than the first lap. And here we go, he pulls out of the racetrack. We still got Nils Santkoski as well on his last lap. Now he is third at the moment and could still improve, possibly coming over the line. Let's see what he can do there. But yes, I'm thinking it's more of a case of Brian Lockwood coming in as Nils Santkoski comes into the pit lane as well. I think Brian Lockwood, he now has the pace, he has established that he has the pace to run in the front of this field and disrupt the flow of Diach as well. Now, is it going to be a case of Brian Lockwood running away with it and Diach guys trying to hold onto his toe, and then Brian letting the rest of his club do the hard work of getting past those Diach drivers? Or is Brian perhaps take a little bit slower, bunch the field up together, and with that give chance to his fellow clubmen to gain some positions on Diach guys? We don't know. As we established, overtaking is not easy here, and if Brian is smart, if he can be smart and run in front of that pack without getting overtaken, then I think Florida might have a better shot than we thought 10 minutes ago.
Well, there we can see Brian Lockwood then gets himself pole position. Then we've got Tobias Solto in second, Nils Santkoski in third, Nicholas Leibich in fourth, Yarovaya in fifth place. There's the remainder of the top 10 up on your screen. We can see that there are 7 Diach drivers up there, 2 Florida drivers, and 1 Iberia driver. We head on back, and you'll notice that you got then Diach with Pappenbrock, Rafael Cabrera in 12th. Rest of your field coming through. A lot of Florida in your mid-teens right there as well. Your first Texan driver is Brent Trosin down in the 19th position. And there's the remainder of your field. Marty Vrana, Dustin Hamilton, Eddie Hawks, hoping really just to make sure they can finish the race here today. Drivers are gridding, getting themselves ready for the second part of this event. Don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, if you're after more World Cup action, there will be more later on. It'll be on iRacing Live. It'll be presented by the Global Sim Racing channel. Group C, starting at 7 PM GMT. Club UK and Ireland, Canada, Eastern Europe, and Benelux. Then Group D, starting at 11 PM, Northwest, New York, Brazil, and California. Catch all these events on the Global Sim Racing channel later on today. It's the World Cup of iRacing, streaming live in its entirety on iRacing Live. There you can see then your field. You're stuck behind the iRacing first safety car, getting ready to go racing. Florida had the lead heading in to this event, but Diach have got strength in numbers right now. They are looking to punch their ticket into the 2016 World Cup of iRacing finals in Florida. Well, they're just hoping that they can find a way to squeeze through in terms of road competition. Iberia and Texas are essentially out of this one. They haven't got the numbers. Mathematically, neither can qualify for the World Cup of iRacing finals, so it's just simply a showdown. Diach, Florida, And we'll talk about this in the race, but that's possibly the worst thing that could happen to Florida. The fact that Club Iberia haven't got the strength of numbers here today. The pace car pulls off. Heading towards Ravazza. It will exit Ravazza and dart right on towards pit road. And then the field will be in the command of Brian Lockwood, ready to go racing. If you want to get social with us, you can. Use the hashtag RacebotTV. Follow us on Twitter at RacebotTV/RacebotTV on Facebook. Live timing and scoring is available all race long as the pace car dances on towards pit road. 50 minutes. Racing here at Imola starts now. 50 minutes on the play clock. It'll be a case of can they all survive the first lap? Can they survive the first two chicanes? In towards the first of them they come. And Jake, they're through for the time being.
Yeah, they are. They're all clean. You can see here in the mid-pack, they're all going to be trying to find themselves a way through. And you can see drivers left and right all looking for those opportunities. The track is incredibly tight. Lockwood has that break as things stand at the moment. Soltau there in second, Sentowski there in third, and Lorbish in fourth. It is pretty much not the start they wanted. Rogan there locking up the brakes heading into Tosa. So already you can see a lot of drivers pushing themselves a little bit, but status quo as we thought would happen as they head to Piratella.
Yep. Lockwood leads by 6 tenths per second over the competition as it stands right now. Overall, again though, a good start to this event. We go on board briefly with the driver of Mike Rogan in 6th place through Acqua Minerale, out of Acqua Minerale, down towards the third chicane here. Already though, this field is starting to spread out, and well, this isn't necessarily going to be the most exciting race we will see with so many DX drivers in the mix. What we do want to pay attention to is this Club Iberia driver, the Lone Warrior, so it seems, for this club here.
Big wreck in the back, exiting Variante Alta. There was a wreck, and I believe it involved a Florida driver of William Wright, who had a little bit of an issue exiting the Variante Alta chicane, and he was also hit in the back by, I believe it was actually Daniel Courage hitting him in the back, and as a result we have one driver for Club Florida already in the wall, and it is from P number 14, William Wright, so that is going to put a wrench into 13th. He's in the pit lane.
Yep, so it will come down towards pit road. Side damage to that race car, Jonas, and that's the thing. These guys can handle front and rear impacts, but they can't handle damage to the side. And for Florida, it's just starting to slip away for them right now.
Yes, it is, but it's only one driver, let's remember. If it's only one driver, then they can handle it.
So we've got Spinner, and that is Yaro Vaya spinning there at Villeneuve chicane, and how everyone didn't crash into him, I have absolutely no idea, Jonas.
No, it was very good job by everyone avoiding the situation. He came in the corner a bit too hot perhaps into the second part. He locked up his rear axle, it looked like, under braking, and the car just locked in for him. Rear tires got too hot and he spun around and immediately moved. And that's actually usually seen as a mistake when you move after spinning, but this time he moved out of the way of everyone else. It created a bit of a mayhem on that mid-pack around positions 7 to 10, but everyone made it through safely, and that is Jairo Villa out of the equation for time being in the lead. And now I think that is going to be quite helpful for DH. Right now their situation looks very good as we are very early parts of this race. Brian Lockwood dominating at the front. He has Tobias Soltau, Nils Sandkowski and Niklas Laubisch right behind him, and Dragan Nikic as well. But crucially, there's a lot of DH in your top 10. Well,
you say that, but what we did just see there live, and we're just showing you a replay, is Yarrow getting past not one but two drivers in one corner. Jake, that was fantastic.
Oh, it was absolutely brilliant. You certainly saw exactly what was happening there. Kurt's now down onto pit road right now. Maybe he's got a bit of damage. Maybe he's got to serve the penalty. We don't quite know at the moment. But you look at things going on Jaro Villa now has to make sure that he puts himself through the field just for his pride, you could say, for Iberia. But what he will do is the more that he puts himself through the field, the more he will affect Diach and the points that Diach are going to score. And if he does get into a little bit of contact with a couple of drivers here or there, that one's not going to help. They do also have Rafael Cabrera then looking to challenge Mike Rogan. That one is a very interesting one in the battle for 7th place on circuit. There is a train of 6 Diach drivers in a row here, Will, from second down. At the moment, I don't see them being stopped.
They don't, yeah, I completely agree. They do not look as if they are going to be stopped immediately. The only thing I would say here, Jonas, is if you are Club Diach and you can see the Alvira coming up behind one of you guys, it's as simple as this. Let him have the position. Simple as that.
Either let them have the position, or if you are in such a position, whereas, for example, Markus Papenbrock is in the position where he can engage Jarovia in a battle and thus slow his progress and allow his teammates to run away.
Yes.
That is another strategy. As Jarovia gets alongside Markus Papenbrock right now, and let's see what his decision is. They are coming side by side into Rivacha corner, and Markus breaks and allows Jarovia through, so Jarovia takes that 10th position away from him and starts to challenge more of those guys in front.
It's almost as if I know what I'm talking about there, Jonas.
Almost, but not quite.
Yeah, it's still nothing. Nothing at all. Papenbrock runs himself in 11th place right now. Out front, Lockwood, he got himself to a 1 second lead early, Jake. He's not actually been able to break Tobias Salatu right now. That's going to be the interesting thing, whether or not the number 92 machine is going to be able to hang in the coattails of Brian Lockwood in that number 1 Florida machine.
Yeah, that's going to be the big question to ask, and if he can break a second, he's pretty much gone, and it's goodbye to Tobias Salatu. But at the moment, you see around this circuit, there isn't really that long straight that you normally see until you get to the front. And once you get to that front straight, it's just so beneficial to be within 1 second. You have to do it all throughout the corners. And right now, as he heads into Acque Minerale, Brian Lockwood has pretty much just stayed cool and calm and used his strength to his advantage. You normally see him in the Skip Barber 2K World Cup doing incredibly well there. So you see, you know, there is pedigree from these drivers, and you can certainly say there are a lot of battles going on. Jaro Vire as well, he's making his way through. Nicolas Piguet is the next car he's got to try and get past.
And I want to get past him quickly, if at all he possibly can. There we can see the gap from P2 to P3, but Jake, you mentioned it off air. We've got a train of DX drivers from P2 down to what, about P7, P8 right now?
Yeah, we do, and that is going to be so difficult to get out. And actually, it's a top 4 breakaway right now from Lockwood, Soltau, Sentowski, and Laubish. You know, it's a long gap back to Dragan Nikic there in what is 5th position right now. And for all intents and purposes, Jaro Vire was the sole cause of that, and he's managed to get his way through on Piguet. Now he's got to try and chase up to his teammate Rafael Cabrera. Mike Rogan is there as well. So you look at everything going on right now, I think the best that anyone's going to do is 5th, and having 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. That is going to be some very crucial points. That's about 180 points, 270 points, you could argue, that are going to be going straight into the bank of Diach.
Yeah, Douglas Beard, who qualified inside the top 10, right now is in 11th place and is losing ground right now. Has dropped 2 places since the start of this motor race, Jake. And well, for Florida, it's starting to come unraveled for them.
Yeah, it certainly is, and that was all down to trying to deal with a battle that he had going on. He went side by side into Acque Minerale. He got pushed out wide, which had to force him to take the slowdown penalty. That's what's dropped him down the order. He did make a little bit of progress, so there is still an opportunity for Douglas Beard to come back into this event. But, of course, it's 50 minutes, and we've only done about 8 of them so far. So you look at it right now, at 1/5 distance, it looks pretty much all but sorted. Maybe we look at it again, maybe something happens to a few drivers, maybe we have a completely different tale to tell here, Will.
Still a long, long way to go. Always a long way to go in these races. Anything can still happen. Let's go back on board then with the sole real charge in terms of Club Iberia, Yarovaya, right now in P number 8 here, Jonas. And, well, he's trying to charge back through the field. He was, what, 5th at one point? He's now down a net loss of 3 places overall.
Yes, he is, but he is coming back strongly, and it doesn't seem to deter him in his efforts to get back. Oh, and as we see him getting perhaps himself a slowdown penalty of some sort in the main straight, and letting Rafael Cabrera back through for that P8 for time being. Jarovia has to concede that position. There is also another slow car of Robert Cartwright getting lapped at this stage quite early on for Robert Cartwright. He is getting out of the way as expected from the leading drivers, and Jarovia as well looking to overtake him as soon as possible, because each and every lapped car, as he has to slow down again, and he just sees Mike Rochin, Fabian Jungblut and Dragan Nikic running away from his vision, but I think Jarovia might have the pace to catch them later on in this race. Rafael Cabrera getting out of his way again, so it's these two Iberians running in positions 8 and 9 at the moment that are leading the charge against Diaz. Now, how are they affiliated? I think they're just racing for themselves as well as the pride of their club. Just two guys racing amongst themselves, seeing what they can do, because hey, they can.
Yep, there is Rafael Cabrera running.
Oh, contact with Douglas Beard, and he's into the wall, Will.
That's it. I would say that's game over for Florida right now. Douglas Beard hard into the wall. Replay coming up.
You just can't believe things like this happen. He was fighting hard with the car next to him there, Will. That was Nicolas Piguet as they headed down into Piratella. Piguet got himself a little bit too deep on the brakes. He got himself a little bit of a wider line, and Beard didn't leave enough room, in my opinion. He started to lose the car a little bit to Piguet, and then Beard had to pay the price, and that one pretty much dampens the chances of anything that Florida has to offer.
Yeah, let's get ourselves another couple of looks. First of all, on board with the 22 machine, I think. But that car is damaged now, and that's going to be a huge shame for Douglas Beard. Number 42 machine was also involved in that one. That was Nicolas Piguet. Going to get one more look, having a look on board with the 42 machine. There is Nicolas Piguet. Let's roll this tape and show it to you live. At full speed even. This is down into Piatella. He just pushes wide. And then just catches. He just looks as though he gets two wheels at the wrong place. And that's it in terms of me, Jonas. Florida won't get themselves through. This is Diaz's race now to lose.
Yes, it is absolutely Diaz's race to lose, and I think Douglas Beard, he had the right idea there. He absolutely had the right idea of trying for the crossover into Piratella. But what he did wrong there was that he left too little room on the outside. Now, you could argue that technically the passing driver was on the outside of the racetrack there, so he didn't have to leave him room. But it's always a good idea at lap 6 early on in the race to leave room to the other guy as well. As Fernando Alonso once said, you got to always leave space, and I think that is what didn't happen there. So yes, the other guy went into the brakes a little bit too deep. I think that was Nicolas Piguet, correct me if I'm wrong. Went into the brakes a little bit too deep on the inside, and as a result lost his line, and Beard went for the crossover. Right thing to do there, but he could have lifted just a little bit. Maybe he didn't want to run side by side into Aqua Minerale on the outside, but it was in the end a little mistake that cost him a lot, sent him into the wall, and as a result puts him out of the race and dampens Florida's chances significantly. Now I think they are going to need a miracle.
Yeah, a miracle's the light way of saying it right now. We just showed you your top 8 on screen. Just to let you know, Tobias Solto has fallen back now to 1.2 seconds behind Brian Lockwood. Is Lockwood managing the gap? Is it just a case of Tobias pushing as hard as he can at this stage of the motor race? There's still so much to go on. And well, Jake, as far as I see it, Tobias is doing a good job of putting that pressure on your race leader.
Yeah, he certainly is, and actually something to look at Florida. Their second car at the moment as things stand is in 14th position. That's all you need to know right now about just how badly this split is going for them here. Brian Lockwood there up at the top has that 1.2 second gap, but Soltau is keeping him honest right now. He doesn't need to make that overtake. He doesn't have to win this race. He just needs to stay calm, stay behind him. There's still a long way to go, and a lot of drivers could potentially lose the car in certain places. Mike Rogan and Jaro Via, though, they're going to go side by side as they head to the Variante Alta for the 8th time here, and he's going to try and do it around the outside. Bit of contact, and he has to check up into the corner, so both of them slowing each other down there. And you have to say, Jonas Puheka was saying it earlier on, there isn't enough room to bring these cars too wide into that corner, and that was just emphasis and view, and pretty much an example of why he does it. But running wide and
and there's the number 17 machine turned around. Was that payback? Was it something else? Replay on board right now. We're gonna watch this one from on board of Mike Rogan first. into Ravazza. Jonas, what's your thought?
I think what happened there, it was not payback. First of all, the contact at Variante Alta was initiated by Jarovia turning in way too early, not leaving enough space. But what happened at breaking to Rivazza is that I think Mike Rochin made an honest mistake. He locked up his brakes, tried to brake in a little bit too late, and Jarovia saw him running wide and couldn't really do anything there. I think a racing incident.
Yeah, and that replay just showed it up perfectly for us. Because at the point that Yari got down into the braking zone, Jonas, there's nowhere left for him to really go. If he was to turn sharp left, he'd be spinning also.
Yes, and actually his countryman Rafael Cabrera actually spun avoiding that accident in the corner, which was perhaps shown on the replay. And Jarovia making it through that unscathed, and the guy who initiated the contact, of course, Mike Rochin, has to come into the pit lane for repairs, but I think it was honest mistake and the kind of mistake that you see often here in Imola. It's very, very easy to lock up the brakes in these cars, especially as the tires start to wear down, and we are going to have to stay on the lookout for more mistakes like that, because they could change the perception of this race, the whole complexion of this race. Now, I don't think, as Eddie Hawks goes really wide, as he's a lap down already, Dragan Nikic going around him on the last corner, so I don't think DH is going to make so many mistakes that they are going to hand Florida this spot to the finals. But we are going to see a lot of very experienced drivers making mistakes here. We saw that in Group A, and we might see it here as well.
And I think the key thing will be all the other clubs at this stage, Jonas, they are looking at this event, A, for their own clubs, and their own race, figure out the danger points, but also paying attention to the weaknesses and the strengths of each of the clubs. Because you can learn a lot by watching tape like this. Understand who works well under pressure, who doesn't work well under pressure. And yeah, we are going to go to Circuit Spa Francorchamps for the finals, you know, which is a track that pretty much everyone has run at some point. But that doesn't mean that the racing is going to be easy there.
No, not at all, Will. And you can do a bit of scouting, so to say. You can look at these races for other clubs, and people, of course, hoping for different results. But in the end, what you gotta concentrate really on is your own performance. You can't worry too much about how fast others are running, or you are going to drive yourself insane. You just got to find the proper setup, the right setup for the final race, and see who else is gonna be facing you in the finals. And in the end, as is the World Cup of iRacing, it doesn't matter who is against you in the finals, you just gotta beat everyone.
On board a Nicholas Piquet versus Rafael Cabrera. Iberia versus Diaz right now. That is a battle going on inside of your top 10. Your race leader is still Brian Lockwood. Retirees so far, you've got John King out, Eddie Moran out of this event. You've got yourself two drivers on pit road. Mike Rogan is on pit road, as well as Brett Trosson. The important thing to note here in both of these circumstances, well, Mike Rogan is a Club DH driver. Douglas Beard is a Club Florida driver. Brent Trojan is a Texan driver. Then you got yourself Florida, and you've also got yourself Asia. Well, that's not right, but hey, let's just go away from that very quickly. But it's worth noting that DH have lost a driver out of this event already, but Florida have lost two here, Jake, and that's the thing. The only way that DH are going to lose this is if their cars start binning it into the wall.
Yeah, I have to agree with you, and there's not really too much else you can potentially say for Florida's hopes. And, well, it was a good luck you tried, but here's your shiny sticker at the moment right now, and you have to say, you know, when you have these cars down at the back of the field and they're not really going there and doing exactly the result that they need to do, you know, you have to make sure that you practice both ends of the spectrum, and that is proven more here than anywhere else. We saw how good they are. They beat Club DH in terms of the oval, but come road, you know, they don't have anything. They have Brian Lockwood, and what else?
Not much. It's a simple answer to that. Not much. Let's ride a couple of corners on board with Nicholas Piquet trying to get himself past Rafael Cabrera in P number 9. Jake, in terms of and so far, still the DX train rolls itself on.
Yeah, and there's no signs of it going into safe station, disintegrating and ending itself out in a load of troubles right now. They've done a fantastic job to get themselves there, and even though this is a B team, you could say, from DH, they've still got a great cohesion about them. They've still got that same sort of style of, you know, they have that talent in depth that we've seen, that we didn't really see here from Florida in terms of the roadside right now today. You look at what is going on then from DH. You know, they've just done a really good job, and we saw it a little bit with Finland in the same way of they don't have those three big drivers in the forms of Hutu Pakala and Alexi Usiakola, but they can still bring together a great team. They can still do exactly what they need to do to get themselves qualifying, and qualifying well, and I think this is where DH have really shown what they can do in numbers.
Indeed so. Don't forget, you can catch the replay of the first round of the iRacing Pro Series on the official iRacing YouTube page. Congratulations to Bono Hui for winning the first round of that championship, being brought to you by Apex Racing TV. Still got ourselves a way to go here. We've still got 13 minutes remaining. 20 minutes are in the book, as the best battle we have got going on is still between the Iberia drivers and trying to work themselves back for the field here. So Jonas, that is where your big battles are.
Yes, indeed, and it is not looking great for Florida at all at this stage, as we have established earlier on as well. Now, Jairo Villa is the kind of guy who can really make a difference here. We talked about this earlier on. He is really on a do-or-die charge here. 138.8 last time by against Fabian Youngblood, 139.6 for him. He is stuck behind the car of William Bright in his 6th position. Now, William Bright is in P number 19, of course. He is a lap down, looking to let Fabian Youngblood perhaps pass him soon enough. Now, Jairo Villa is looking at this like, okay, I can take 6th place, I can perhaps take a top 5. But after that, he can perhaps catch Dragan Nikic, but after that, it's going to be an uphill struggle for him. We know Jairo Villa is a very fast GD1 driver, and he is a guy who can really put on a charge when it's required. So it's going to be interesting to follow him along, as well as we have another battle between Marcus Papenbrock and Rafael Cabrera for the E number 8 for that 8th position. Rafael catching 2/10 to Marcus last time by, so that is going to be another interesting battle to follow.
Yeah, and this is close. We've got Fabian Rumpler versus Jairo Villa, just 4 tenths per second separating these drivers around here. And it is close. What's happened? Brian Lockwood's had an incident. Brian Lockwood, oh no, he's on pit road. I take that back. He's on pit road. Jake, I get nervous at this time in the motor race.
Yeah, it's fine. We all do it at times. And well, Brian Lockwood down onto pit road. I believe it's going to be a one-stop strategy then, if that is anything to go by. So all eyes on that then as they turn to pit road. So you can see Jungbluff there still having to deal with that troubled traffic just ahead of him, and it's going to try and go side by side. And he's got to work his way around the traffic. It's not going to be always, you know, that easy picking, and there's no reason to. And now Villa gets incredibly twitchy under the brakes. Has a couple of big wiggles to try and get around his man. And you can see here, despite being a lap down, William Wright is not prepared to let anybody go.
Indeed not. There's Lockwood coming back out onto track. 15.4 seconds stop. 50 seconds on the lane in total. Tobias Saloto now leads this motor race as a consequence. Gap is 5.7 seconds. We've still got ongoing battles. We've got actually number 13 machine on pit road now. So Rafael Cabrera has come down on towards pit lane to make his one and only stop of the day. Those you can see coming out of pit road, we're going to ride on board as he comes out of the lane. And actually, it's a bit weird because in the same way as Road Atlanta, it's hard to get off pit road. This one can be difficult.
Oh, Jairo spun. Jairo Villa just spun.
Ah, that's the second time today, Jonas.
Yes, it is, and he was, I think, getting frustrated behind William Wright, and to be honest, I can't blame him. He cut the curb a little bit too much on the inside, on the second part of Agua Minerale, got on power too early, car got twitchy, he just managed to avoid the wall, but he now has all the work to do again as he tries to get past Marcus Papenbrock. Now, it's Jairo Villa going to be putting on a charge again, but I think at this stage it would be good for him to pit early, rather than late, because those tires are absolutely shot right now, Will.
Yeah, I think he's been using too much of them. There is Marcus Papenbrock, the number 23 machine. There is Jairo Villa. And let's have a look who's coming on towards pit road out of these lot. None of them. If I was the two DH drivers, I would have considered just dancing on towards pit road here. We are almost at the halfway distance of this event, Jake.
Yeah, you don't really need to risk it around a driver who you could potentially argue right now could have a few issues here and there in the forms of Gyro Via right now. We know how hard he's pushing, we know that he has a tendency to spin it, he's done it twice today, so why put yourself in that position where you could potentially put yourself in an instant if you're Pappenbrock or if you're Pigway. Now, if I'm in that position, I would probably pit both of those drivers and say, you know what, just get yourself out of the way, run your own race and make sure that you're not dealing with any unnecessary things here or there. They do have the drivers to expend though. They've got about 5, 6, 7, 8 drivers all up there ahead of the next best Florida driver, so it's not a case of needing to do anything in order to win this race, but just to show dominance, make a risk-free sort of strategy right now. You don't really need to do anything more than they're doing right now.
Halfway through this motor race here on RaceSpot TV, streaming live on iRacing Live, Nicholas Piguet versus Marcus Pappenbrock. These are two people fighting as teammates right now, but they're not really fighting that much, Jake. They're just trying to make sure that they're all driving at the right level.
Yeah, it's a pseudo battle as we see Pigway get it all horribly wrong down at the Variante Alta. Had to hit the brakes incredibly hard, but you make sure he keeps the car pointing in the right direction. That loses him a bit of time then to Pappenbrock, who's just keeping himself behind Jarovaya, who locks his tyres once, locks his tyres twice, and gets himself through Ravats. And so now we're seeing the drivers starting to struggle on the tyres. Now we're thinking pit stop window may be starting to open up, but again, none of these drivers are going to come in again. No one really down on the lane right now, so you had to say a very early one then, and an early one that was quite interesting, you could say, from the driver of what was Brian Lockwood then. He's trying to force an issue early, and it hasn't worked out, in my opinion, as we have Eddie Hawks in the wall.
So that is going to hurt one team again, and that team is Florida. It continues to come unglued for them. This, I believe, is on the exit of Tosa. Let's try and replay that one further. Yeah, Tosa just spinning it through the corner. The car snaps on him, and Eddie Hawks. Well, that's the thing. What did I say at the top of this broadcast, Jonas? Get you guys to the end, then count the points.
Yes, indeed, and I think Florida is having a lot of difficulty. Perhaps not a setup everyone is used to driving. They are having really problems with the used tires. Eddie Hawks not really getting anywhere right now on the racetrack. He's having a lot of troubles. Other drivers having troubles as well. We saw even Martin Grana having troubles earlier on as well. And really these drivers, they are struggling. Whereas DH is on their element. They can just run their own pace. They have a setup that can take the curbs really, really well. I've seen them really a couple of times really hitting those curbs and not getting any problems out of that whatsoever. So I'm thinking DH was just way better prepared for this roadside.
And this comes back to one of the things you're talking about earlier, Jonas, over getting drivers ready for events. Not just doing a week's worth of prep, but understanding the car, understanding the situations, running series, be it as a club, be it as a group of individuals looking to run for a club, as we've got Neil Salemsky on pit road as we speak there. Just making sure that you as a team have everything you need to get yourself into a situation. And it's not just, hot lapping, it's racing. And it's making sure that you're in these high pressure situations week in, week out.
Yes, absolutely so, Will, absolutely so. You have to have the necessary racecraft and the experience that comes only from running tens or hundreds or even thousands of races, along with the thousands of miles in practice that you need to do in preparation for one event. Oh, and as Nicolas Piquet has a half spin at Tosa, as he caught up to Marcus Pappenbrock, I believe. Yes, Marcus Pappenbrock under braking, and he is losing a bit of time there. It comes down to really experience. Florida guys don't seem to be running that much on the roadside, not that much experience. They have the event, they might have a decent setup, perhaps on Brian Lockwood, but ultimately, they don't quite have the experience and the trust themselves, the confidence that it requires to run a 50-minute race at absolutely maximum. It might be a case of nerves, it might be a case of lack of preparation, or it might be a case of the wrong kind of preparation. I'm not accusing them of being lazy. I'm not accusing them of preparing or under-preparing for the roadside. I'm just saying that it might be the wrong kind of preparation. Doing hot laps, doing lap times might not be the right kind of preparation, and absolutely isn't the right kind of preparation for a 50-minute GT1 race.
Just to let you know, the points, as I stood a moment ago, 1,360 DH, 1168 to Florida. That's going to take some doing then to come back into the game here. Running ourselves on board with Nicholas Luzbech on towards pit road, Jake.
Yeah, and that is going to be a key factor then, as we're going to see a few drivers coming down in onto pit road. You can see most certainly Brian Lockwood goes past. Lobich, they're still waiting to come out of his box. It's an incredibly slow pit lane here, and actually it's a very long stop, you could say then, for Lobich, who only just gets out and away now. So, you know, you look at that and where the drivers are going to be in. Newman comes in right now, so a lot of time lost, but I think he'll only lose it compared to his DH teammates.
49.4 on the lane. Worth noting that Brian Lockwood is still leading the drivers who have pitted. But P2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 haven't pitted so far in this event. So there's still a way to go here. And we're keeping an eye out on this driver out front, who is now coming on towards pit road. So let's watch. You can see that lane time starting the second he hits the commit cone there, Jake. The number 92 machine, Tobias Soltu, on to pit road.
Yeah, and you can see he's just got to wait for his pit box, only going at 60 kilometers an hour, and well, that seems incredibly slow. If you think that's just what your average B road, you could say right now, it's not really too quick, but now hits himself onto the brakes and just now has to wait, get those fuel done, get the tires potentially done up, and you can see Jungluff will come in and follow. Jarovaya now will come past. William Wright, he's managed to get past Pappenbrock. Will he come down onto the lane? No, he won't. Piguet, he will come down to pit lane, and now here comes Brian Lockwood.
Yep, so Lockwood, where is he going to be? Lockwood is here. Lockwood's going to lose the race lead.
It's tight, Will.
He's going to get it. He's got it.
He's got it. Yeah, just by a little bit. But now that gap is under a second once again, and Soltau can now put the pressure on more. And if you have to say, if Brian Lockwood crashes out, then there really is no hope. You can see he runs a little bit wide there, coming out of the final part of Tamburello into Villeneuve, and now he's got to find a rhythm again.
Well, more importantly, let's not forget, Eunice, that Brian Lockwood's going to be on older tyres at the end of this motor race. These last 20 minutes are going to have to be push it to the max for Lockwood just to get a little bit of pride for this club.
Yes, it is, and Brian Lockwood, let's remember, he doesn't have much to lose at this stage aside from the pride. He must know the situation that Club Florida is in. Now, Tobias Soltau, on the other hand, how much does he value this race win? How much does he want to win this race? Tobias Soltau, of course, has been really, really good early on, as we see Brian Lockwood getting really hairy at the exit of Luckman Rally. Tobias Soltau was very good early on. He was able to keep pace with Brian Lockwood. Now, the cars are a bit lighter as they were early on. Tobias is still hanging to the back of Brian Lockwood. Is he gonna bide his time and wait for Brian to make a mistake, or are we going to see a battle? For broadcast's sake, I hope later.
Let's ride on board with Tobias Soltu. Let's spend a lap on board of him. And let's see this charge continue to grow then. Exit of Ravazza on board. Diat versus Florida. This will be for the race lead once others come on towards pit road. Two of them are in already. Let's listen in. gap remains close. 0.2 of a second, 0.1 of a second. No pass coming into turn number 1, Jake.
No, certainly not, but Brian Lockwood is taking so much more risk. You saw him in the Variante Alta. He was all over the curb so much, he was halfway to a one-night stand. He was trying so hard, and now you look at Lockwood, he is getting those gaps now. He's getting them up more and more, but Soltau not trying to make that position. I think he is valuing there, Will. He is valuing that position just to the point where he needs to be careful about how he does things. He doesn't really need to do too much, though, because he does have the position as things stand.
He does. Down to the last 16 minutes of Group B of the World Cup of iRacing. Don't forget, later on the Global Sim Racing channel will have coverage of Group C and Group D. Group C will commence at 7 p.m. GMT here on iRacing Live. It'll be the Global Sim Racing channel on iRacing Live, and then 11 p.m. GMT we'll see Group D. Will Club UK and Ireland be able to get themselves through to the final? What about the likes of Central Eastern Europe and others? You'll find out in the Group C showdown in a couple of hours' time. A car spun around down at the exit of Aqua Minerale. Jake, any updates?
Well, I've seen a car spin down at the Variante Alta, and that is William Wright then, who is 3 laps down as things stand right now. He's in 17th position,
That's
2 laps down as things stand. So, you know, it's one of those things where it hasn't really worked out. Another Florida driver making a mistake, and it just shows the inexperience they have in this side. And I think they'll take lessons from this and actually try and improve when it comes to next year.
Yeah. Having a look into the chicane. Curby, hoppy hop. Turns that car around. Reverse that car at the perfect time, because otherwise, if he was half a second later there, Jonas, P1 and P2 would be out of this event.
Yes, indeed. Well, they could have avoided it. Maybe they could have avoided it, but at that point of the racetrack, you are really in the middle of the track, and there is not much there to go, nowhere really to go. So good awareness, good situational awareness there from William Wright. He knew that he made a mistake, he spun around, but then was okay, I'm just trying to get out of these guys' way. They are having a good battle there. Brian Lockwood and Tobias Solta are having that leading battle. I'm just gonna get out of their way. And William Wright there really hurting nobody else but his ego and his track position right now. He is 3 laps back, but crucially still in this motor race. So he is in P number 16, he is 3 laps back, but he is still running, and same can't be said for everyone. So he just tries to finish the race, pray for a miracle, but I think at this point it's really cut to the chase for DH unless a miracle happens. As I said earlier in this broadcast, it's going to be DH, but I don't think you can really say that Florida did bad at all. They brought the fight to DH, and even the mere fact that they were able to challenge DH, get themselves 5th seed into the Group B and challenge DH and bring the fight to DH's turf is gonna show that they are going to be a force to be reckoned with in the coming years. Remember, they do have the manpower.
Yeah, and it's worth noting that Adam Olchowski for Club Florida is out of this event as well. Blown engine, Jake, making it even worse for that club as it stands.
Yeah, it really does. And well, when you're losing drivers by 3, by 4, by 5, by 6, there's not really much more you can say or do. They've done an incredible job to get themselves into this position we've just stated previously, but you know, they got to have those people who are challenging for those podium positions. They got to have those people who are going to be there in and around the top 5, top 10. As things stand on the roadside, because they haven't had anyone in the top 10 and they've pretty much been occupying those lower positions, it's been pretty much game over here. You look about cars on the lead lap in terms of Florida, they've got 2. And you look at DH, they've got, what, 8?
Yeah, precisely. I think that, Jonas, I think when I think back to this, for me it came down to the fact that the qualifying for DH was so strong. And again, you're right, it's nothing bad against Florida here. They were just out-qualified and out-raced for the most part here on the roadside. And Florida, they did a lot on the oval side. What they didn't do is the last third of their team didn't have the top 10, top 15.
Oh, Nicolas Piguet hitting Douglas Duchette in the back at Villeneuve chicane. So it is Nicolas Piguet of Club DH hitting the back of Douglas Duchette as he was lapping him, just runs into the back of him, perhaps not expecting the pace differential to be this big. Either way, Nicolas Piguet now has to work to do all over again. His car is understeering, but it looks to be still drivable, Will. So maybe a replay?
Of course. replays up now. Let's listen to it. This is through the first chicane, but on board with Nicholas Brigade through the second chicane, Villeneuve chicane coming up now. And this is still a lot of mistakes that could really hurt a team, but wow, that was just a big speed difference though. That's what I noted there. And the number 65 machine of Decay, well, has got going as well. Let's have another look on board with him as well. Jake, that was a crazy incident. Let's get ourselves one more look at that.
Yeah, it was very scary down.
Oh, out of your screens. I'm sorry, Jake. Douglas Ducey has spun again at the Variante Alta, went into the wall hard, left rear quarter panel first, and has significant damage. And I think that his day is over. So another issue for Club Florida and another spell of bad news.
Yeah, absolutely. And you certainly see the situation happening. Florida are literally trying too hard, you could say, right now. They don't have the pace in terms of this race right now, and they're just trying to get themselves to the line. And they're, in some ways, you could say they're being found out, but it's not a bad way of being found out that they haven't done enough here in the road side of things. They've done an incredible job to get themselves into that 5th seed. They've done an incredible job to put themselves in that situation where they're fighting. And you have to remember, they're still leading this race technically in the form of Brian Lockwood here, Will. So you have to say, you know, this has been an incredible job. And to win on road against DH as a team, that takes some skill.
It does. It does. 10 minutes then left of this event. Very quickly, I want to ask you, Jonas, the DX team that we've seen here today, they haven't been spectacular, but they've been consistent. What worries do you think Club Finland will have going to the finals, going up against one of their old foes?
Well, you always worry a little bit. You have some worries. Is your setup good? How is your pace overall? And what are they going to pull out of their back? What are the drivers they are going to pull out of their back? Because let's remember, Club DX also has some very talented road drivers on the side that we have perhaps not seen here today. Now, I'm not saying drivers like Tobias Soltau, Nils Sankowski, Niklas Laubisch, for example, are untalented. I'm just saying that they still got manpower in reserve, and who are they going to bring against our top guys? But ultimately, I think it's going to be a motor race in the finals. Well, as expected, it's going to be a good motor race, and I don't think we should worry about too much. And the thing is right now, I'm quietly confident about our chances this year. The GD1 is something that suits Finland quite well, and I'm quietly confident, but at the same time, DH is always going to be an absolute challenge. But let's remember, it's not only DH in the finals against us, it's going to be 4 clubs, and 4 clubs that have to make it through the grindstone of qualifiers. Then the absolute thunderdome of group stage, as we have seen, and to just prove themselves, just to make it to the finals and then prepare for the finals, make an entirely new setup for Spa-Francorchamps, where GD1 cars have run earlier, but something that suits the entire team, getting the right guys out there, getting them prepared as well, and fielding the best team possible in hopes of capturing the glory for your club. So as a Finn, I'm quietly confident about our chances, but the thing is that I'm quietly confident about our chances always.
And it's also worth noting, Jake, that one might argue that had Iberia fielded a full team, especially for the road event, it might want to help Florida a bit more. They're in this situation in Florida right now where DH is dominating, but we've seen some good performances from Iberia drivers. Maybe, I'm not going to say that DH have won it because of Iberia being here, but maybe Florida might have lost out because it was a one-on-one showdown.
Yeah, you can argue that, and you saw that they struggled to get themselves through into the oval side of things, and then complacency, you could say, would go in from Iberia. What do we have to lose? Why would we even race this? And then you can see they've only got 2 drivers in, and it really does show you that if you've got nothing to fight for, why fight in the first place? But you see the likes of Jaro Vaya put himself in. I think we also see Rafael Cabrera as well doing a good job, and you know, they still had talent, they still had guys up inside the top 10 all fighting it out for position. So if they did have 3 or 4 drivers, and if they did have drivers that could put themselves in that situation, like Sir Christian Quintanuski, Ade Koba Lopez, Pablo GoPro Lopez, and all of those sorts of drivers that they could bring into the forefront, you know, this would be a completely different story. And you look at it for what was a situation, granted, yes, it could take points away from the likes of DH, but then again, it also takes points away from Florida. Not as much, but still enough where we'd still see the same sort of scenario happening.
Yeah. Just having a look at Nicholas Piquet versus Rafael Cabrera one more time. 1 second separating these drivers. We did see a couple of moments ago. They just switched places. We saw Artino. It was a Florida driver. I think it was a lap down, just overshooting into one of the corners about a lap ago. But these two drivers are still mighty close. In fact, let's go on board with the driver of Cabrera, because I think that Nicholas Piquet might have got himself a slowdown penalty there, Jonas.
Yes, he might have indeed, and that is going to allow Rafael Cabrera to challenge Nicolas Piquet for that 9th place later going into this race, and they are coming towards the last corner. Now Nicolas closing, and it's Rafael on the inside, Nicolas on the outside. Rafael braking late inside, not quite late enough to get himself a chance coming into the last corner. Now, is he going to get a chance on the main straight? The answer to that is, I'm afraid, no, and he is going to have to try again another lap.
Point situation, 1,312 points to Diaz, 1,165 points to Florida. While they talk about miracles, you do think about needing a miracle right now. It might not be as big as Duke Miami last year, but you need something if you're Club Florida to get yourself back to getting yourself the lead here. 2 tenths of a second then. Rafael Cabrera versus Nicholas Piquet. Car turned around as well in the wall. That is the driver of William Wright, Jake, in one of the Florida cars. He's turning that car back around right now. And, well, down in P15, he's just lost himself 1 position to a teammate, thankfully.
Yeah, snap of oversteer then after losing the back end through the mid part of the corner. Tried to hold it, couldn't hold it in the end, but now you can see it has fallen away. And actually looking over then, as we can almost certainly snap a ticket in the form of Diaz are moving forward. You can argue, who do they have who can potentially do it? As Piquet runs wide, he'll have to take another slowdown penalty there, and Cabrera is probably going to get himself close, if not through. You know, you look at it, who you got to stamp in. You got the likes of, say, Kei Koshube, Alexander Voss maybe can come in, the likes of Niels Koch, Peter Koch. You've got the likes of, say, Maximilian Benecke, Andreas Almensberger can come in. You've got the likes of Martin Kroenke, Renz Brotman can come in. You've got so many names that can happen as Cabrera's going to get some contact, and he somehow holds on.
That was close. That was close. We've had 2 clean races today. That would have been the first real controversial moment here, Jonas. But also worth thinking about the fact that, you know, we haven't had a flurry of incidents here in this. It's been fantastic racing.
It's been very good racing. I wouldn't quite call it fantastic yet. There has been some questionable incidents that I would like to take a second look on, but it's been very good racing. And as we see here, this is a very difficult situation that you are going to put yourself into as a race car driver, because Nicolas Piquet was taking the inside line, he was telegraphing it all the way through. Rafael had to run on him, and he just closed the door on him. Now, you could argue that Nicolas wasn't enough alongside, and as a result, Rafael just took the racing line, swiped right in front of him, and took the space away from him in order to enable him to have the proper line coming into Rivazza, the last series of corners, those 2 90-degree right-handers. But I would say that if you are Rafael Cabrera at that situation, you leave the space just in case. You can't just cut in front of someone like that and expect him to lift at that moment, because hey, you see him coming all the way back, and even though he is not enough alongside, you talk about percentage rules, you talk about car being not enough alongside, the fact of the matter is this: if there is a car alongside and you turn in turn, there is going to be an accident, because 2 objects cannot occupy the same space at the same time. Physics.
Yeah. 2 minutes remaining. Lockwood leads, and he has pulled out that lead now to 3.7 seconds actually, Jake. And well, he held off that onslaught and he's pulled away. Maybe someone was saying to Tobias, come on, slow it down.
On the contrary, he made a mistake about 10-15 minutes ago. He made a mistake which cost him about 3 seconds in time. That one has definitely crossed him, as I've just seen Justin Hamilton go exactly straight on at the Variante Alta. But Brian Lockwood, take no credit away from him. He's done an absolutely sterling job at the front of the field. He's ridden the storm. He came in early. He had to deal with that onslaught behind him. He's done exactly what he needed to do. And you know what? He's shown what Florida can do, and that's what we need to see. It's those sorts of performances that say, you know what, Brian Lockwood, he's a bigger commodity than people first thought.
Joe Beasley's had an incident in the number 60 machine, as there's a replay of Hamilton going off. Here's Joe Beasley in the number 60 car then. This is down at Acqua Minerale. Let's have a look. Is he just going to loop it around, get loose? He's done something. All I know is he's done something because he was slowing down all the way down to nothing. Unless our timing and scoring screens have completely messed up. Yep, there we are, Variante Alta. There we are, and he just misses that little tyre barrier there. Looping it around. Not the first time we've seen a Florida driver do that here today. But it's white flag lap time. Oh, is it? For Brian Lockwood. It might be close in terms of the number of laps here.
It is.
It's going to be very close. And well, if DH have underfueled here, then we will see ourselves from the last lap drama, Jake.
Yeah, we will, but you look at the timing, it's 1 minute 25 until the end of the race, so I have to say, probably the white flag, if you're looking at 1:39 lap times from Brian Lockwood right now into what is this right-hander of that Acqua Minerale up the hill to...
Clock will go out. Clock will go out.
Yeah, the clock will go out into what will be the Variante Alta, and then just 2 corners to go, and Brian Lockwood could be a race winner.
Yep, Brian Lockwood then heading himself through the Variante Alta, down into Ravazza for the final time. The play clock will tick down to 5, 4, 3 seconds, 2 and 1, and the white flag is out then. 1 more corner to go for Brian Lockwood. His club may not move themselves through to the finals, but Brian Lockwood and Florida show that they have grit, they have passion, they have determination. Lockwood wins here at Imola, and it will be Diaz going through. Tobias Solto will head himself through in 2nd place. Then it's a Diaz train with Nilsson Koski in 3rd and Nicholas Lubic in 4th position. They're all just now heading themselves towards the end of the event. But Diaz join Club Finland in the 2016 World Cup of iRacing final, Jake.
Yeah, they do, and well, it was a little bit laboured, we thought, to begin with, but in the end, they show their class on the road, and there will be a lot of potential to move forward. They join themselves with Finland, so pretty much half of last year are back there again, and the established name comes in. Now we have to make our attentions turn to Group C, UK and Ireland in their battle with Canada, Central Eastern Europe, and also the likes of Benelux as well, and also Group D, which sees those 3 American states all try and battle it out against Brazil for the final spot. It's certainly ones not to miss, and I believe on GSRC.
Indeed so. Let's get a look then at your final race results here. You can see that Florida win it. Iberia have 2 drivers inside the top 10, but the rest, it's all Diaz. They have themselves a total of 7 drivers that finish inside the top 10 here today. Brian Lockwood wins, Tobias Solto in 2nd place, Nils Sinkowski in 3rd, Nicholas Lubic in 4th, Dragon Nick in 5th, Yo Vara, your first Iberia driver, in 6th, Fabian Drumbluff, Marcus Pappenbrock, Rafael Cabrera, and Nicholas Biguet rounds out your top 10. Rest of the results then, cycling it through. Daniel Newman, Joe Beasley, Marty Vrana, Robert Cartwright, William Wright, Eddie Hawkes. You've got 5 Florida drivers inside, 4 Florida drivers inside your top 15 between P number 10 and 15. Eddie Hawkes, Mike Rogan, Adam Olkowski, of course, had himself an incident. Daniel Krutz and Douglas Duchette rounds out your top 20. And there's a remainder of your results. Brett Trosim, your first driver, out. Let's then step aside for just one moment. Back to wrap up our coverage after these messages. You're watching Racebot TV on iRacing Live. Diach punched their ticket to the 2016 World Cup of iRacing Finals. Florida, after a good showing on the oval side, can't quite do enough to get themselves through. And while Iberia and Texas, unfortunately, will be part players in this opera here today. So it's Diach that will get themselves then into the finals in 1 week's time. And there's a look at your final race results one more time. And there's a depth of numbers we talked about. Lockwood wins by 4.4 seconds over Tobias Solto. But then it's all about Diach with a little bit of Iberia peppered in between. Brian Lockwood's here from Club Florida. Brian, not the finish your club would have wanted, but congratulations on the race win.
Oh, thank you. You know, the club's improved a lot over the past couple of years. You know, I can't be disappointed with how the race ended up. I'm really proud of everyone there. You know, great performance. Next year, I think we'll be right there with the top guys.
That's my next question. What can you learn from 2016 to take into the 2017 World Cup of iRacing?
I think some of it's just plain participation. If we had started practicing earlier as a team also and working together that way, maybe we would have pushed ourselves a little higher. Maybe that would have made the difference. But as I said, you know, I can't complain about anything this year.
Well, getting the race victory and the pride that goes with it for your club. I mean, it was a tough race. You came out of pit road 4 tenths per second ahead. It's by a salt true. Palm sweaty?
A little bit.
Knees weak? Arms heavy?
Oh, come on, Will.
I'm joking. I'm joking.
No, yeah, that was a very tough race. Not my best drive. I'll say that. I made a lot of mistakes that I shouldn't have been making, particularly when the tires started to go off. I didn't compensate well enough for that, and that resulted in me overdriving the car a little bit, again, making a lot of mistakes. I'm sure you saw it to some extent. I would, you know, almost break away from Tobias, and then he'd creep right back, and I'd almost break away. That cycle happened a few times, even after the pit stop. But once I was finally able to get away from him, I was able to maintain the gap.
Well, we can always talk about next year. We can always talk about what next. But you are the winner here today. And of course, Derek Spears Design has been a big part of your program this year for Club Florida. But now's the moment to give a shout out to anyone you wish to from your club. Anyone else?
Yeah, well, of course, Derek Spears Design for helping us out this year. And Marty from Club Florida, he's the team captain this year. He put a lot of work into putting the team together. You know, he was the reason it all came together as well as it did. So I can't thank him enough. And thank you to all the guys at Club Florida. That was I really enjoyed the experience.
Brian Lockwood wins out here, but Florida don't advance. The final points then, Texas 144 points, Iberia 157. Florida 1151, but DH win it by about 170 points when all was said and done. They got themselves 1,315 points. And well, Jake, we'll see them in the final next week.
Yeah, we certainly will, and this one's going to be incredibly brilliant to see. Will there be any big names that try and bring themselves to the fold? If it's DH, well, they showed that they've got a good accounting for themselves. Whether they can win on this team, I'd say that's doubtful right now. Whether they can win on a team with a few more big names and familiar faces, I think they maybe have a really good chance.
So, thank you so much to Jonas Ursenpurka, to Jake Sperry, to And1 Design, the official graphics partner of RaceBot TV. Also to ATVO for the fantastic graphics package that you see, and Esteban Barros track cams for Gourmet, 7 p.m. GMT. Catch a global sim racing channel bringing you coverage of Group C. Arguably, this is the group of death. You got Benelux, you got Central Eastern Europe, Canada, and Club UK and Ireland. Someone will have their hearts broken. Only one club can proceed. And then Group D later on. It is a case of America versus Brazil. It's the only real way to look at that one. And that'll be at 11 p.m. GMT. Thank you so much for watching our broadcast. We'll talk to you all again very soon. Bye-bye.